large-scale quantum computers can be built. By using a quantum simulator, researchers can test the behavior of a quantum system under different conditions and different conditions. So the main objective of the online course is to introduce the basics of quantum computing, quantum circuits, and its application to students, researchers, and working professionals. Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDAC, along with Indian Institutes of Technology, Roorkee, with the support of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MIT, Government of India, takes the privilege of organizing the course on quantum computing using indigenous simulator QSim, and heartily welcome one and all present here. We sincerely hope that this coursework will provide valuable knowledge about the technology and its practical application to the participants. May I now request Srimati Lakshmi Ishwari, who is Senior Director and Center Head of CDAC Hyderabad, to welcome the guests and deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Vandana. Whether I am audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, respected dignitaries of today's event, invitees, participants of the online course on quantum computing, and colleagues from IIT Roorkee, Ministry of Electronics and IT, and CDAC, a very good morning and warm welcome to the inaugural function of this online course on quantum computing using indigenous quantum simulator, that is QSim. So it is my privilege to deliver the welcome address in this important event. Before delivering the formal welcome address, let me set the context. As we are all aware, in the recent time, we have seen a lot of advancements in the various emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, quantum computing, and other things. Quantum computing is one thing which is basically it's rapidly emerging and is bringing the next paradigm shift in computing itself. So by harnessing the power of quantum mechanics, so it is an opportunity to us to continue the exponential growth in compute power, which is getting slowed down in the traditional digital computing. So also we have already seen a lot of breakthroughs using these quantum computers in various fields such as medicine, science, communication, security, and other domains. So considering the need to contribute to advanced research in this domain, explore its potential in various application domains and build capabilities in quantum computing, our parent ministry, that is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MIT, Government of India, had supported the various R&D initiatives. One of the initiatives of MIT is towards development of quantum computer simulator and capacity building. So this is being executed collaboratively by IISc Bangalore, IIT Roorkee, and CDAC. So this online course, which is being offered and which is initiated today, is an initiative from project team from IIT Roorkee and CDAC with the support and guidance of MIT. So this is in brief about the context, and today it is a great honor, indeed a great honor to have with us Professor Kamal Kishore, Director IIT Roorkee, for the inaugural function. Thank you, sir, for accepting our request and taking out your valuable time for us. Thank you for all your encouragement and support to the project team from IIT Roorkee. We look forward to listen to your special address. So it is my pleasure to welcome Srimati Sunita Varma, Group Coordinator and Scientist, GMIT. Warm welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for kindly accepting to deliver the special address. Thank you for all your continuous support and guidance from IT towards quantum computing efforts and also all other initiatives of CDAC. We look forward to listen to your address. So as Anup mentioned, due to some other important assignment, Shri Magesh Yatirajan, Director General CDAC, could not join the event, but we would definitely like to thank him for realizing the importance of quantum computing domain and initiating these R&D efforts at CDAC. So we are also thankful for his continued guidance and support to the center in all our initiatives. Thank you, sir. So a warm welcome to all the invitees. A warm welcome to Shri Manoj Jain, sir, HOD, R&D and IT, for all his continuous support and guidance. So warm welcome to Professor Sugata Gangopadhyay, sir, HOD, Department of Computer Science, IIT Roorkee, Jyotishwaran, faculty members from IIT Roorkee, MIT officials, Mr. Anup Kumar from CDAC Hyderabad, Vivek, Vandana, and other members from CDAC. So last but not the least, a warm welcome to all the participants of this online course. Hope you all have a very great learning experience in this particular course. So once again, welcome one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. May I now request Professor Sugata Gangopadhyay, HOD, Department of Computer Science, IIT Roorkee, to kindly address the gathering.
Good morning and good morning to all dignitaries on the panel, particularly Professor Kamal Kishore, Director IIT Roorkee, for accepting our request to be the guest of honor for this program. Srimati Sunita Varma, Group Coordinator Scientist G Mighty, then Sri Manoj Jain, HOD Mighty, then Srimati Lakshmi Kishore, Senior Director, Center Head, CDAC Hyderabad. And and I'm really sorry that DG CDAC could not make it to this program, but we have always got great support from him. So we have got great support from CDAC, and we have also, and needless to say, we have got great support from Mighty. That is why this project could take place, and more or less it is towards the end of the project. In a very brief, I will tell you the evolution of this project. So it was started by Professor Apurva Patel of IISc, who envisions that we can have a quantum simulator which simulates the noise also in the circuit. So he did the prototyping, and that was successfully upgraded to a deployable level by CDAC Hyderabad and CDAC Bangalore at the same time. And we were also, during this whole process, with our students, we were working with them and to make it a product. And it was launched in 2021 by the Raksha Rajya Mantri, and so that is something that we know. So this is it has done like this. And the important thing is that this QSim was developed by using a technique called density matrix, a simulation by using density matrix, and the error profiles that come out of that. At that time, when it was prototyped by Professor Patel, it was the first density matrix simulator. IBM's density matrix simulator came afterwards. So this is where we were actually ahead of the curve from the beginning. And another thing to note, that we have done this very quickly and with using the resources very judicially. I mean, we have not used a lot of resource. And we are also doing this training program directed to a wide range of students, so that students and technological people, engineers and scientists, so that many people can get the introduction to quantum computing and the simulator. So this is what we are doing. And another thing that is important here is that we are in a very interesting point in history of technology and science, because we, at the same time, we are doing something which we can foresee that this is of great commercial interest and practical interest. On the other hand, we are also seeing something which has got deep theoretical interest, and which is actually pointing to many mysteries of the universe. So at the same time, we are having two things, like at the same time commercial, at the same time targeting things which are pointing to very mystery of the structure of the universe. So it is very interesting. By that, I will end my address, and thanking everyone again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir, for explaining the application of quantum computing and the state of the art of quantum computing and quantum simulators. May I now invite Srimati Sunita Varma, ma'am, who is Group Coordinator and Scientist G, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, to kindly address and motivate the students.
Thank you, Vandana. Professor Kamal Kishore, Director IIT Roorkee, Professor Sujata Gangopadhyay, IIT Roorkee, Shri Manoj Jain, HOD R&D in IT Group of Ministry of Electronics and IT, Mati Lakshmi, students, everyone. So, good morning to all the distinguished all attendees, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and honor to be part of this training program on quantum data. For inviting me for this, as well as for the participants to get this opportunity to use the QSim to know more about it. Um, I express my appreciation also to CDAC and IT Root for organizing this online course. As we know, quantum computing is the next paradigm shift in the computing. And due to the unique properties, quantum computers can run millions of computations simultaneously and help in solving specific type of problems significantly much faster when compared to the traditional computers. And already there are new breakthroughs in which have been reported using the quantum technologies and quantum computers in fields such as medicine, science, communication, security, and the list goes on and is expanding fast. And to remain a global design hub, this is one area in which I think India can lead. We are at par and pace with what is happening around the world. And here, India needs to create the necessary infrastructure as well as the competency for building more and more solutions and applications using the quantum technologies. And therefore, there is a need to build the capabilities in this area. And seeing the significance of this field, METI has initiated, as Lakshmi has already said, that METI has initiated many uh, projects and programs, quantum technologies for supporting the quantum compute processor development, for quantum simulator and quantum accelerator, and there are many more activities. So government has recently announced the National Mission on Quantum Technologies and Applications, and MQTA, worth about 6,000 crore, wherein all the ministries, including Telecom, DRDO, Department of Atomic Energy, MITI, and of course led by DST, will be looking at the various technology development applications and the full ecosystem. um, so, with this impetus which is given, um, we have to increase the user base in this area, and the quantum simulator development taken up by CDAC and IIT Roorkee is a positive step towards this, increasing the sensitizing our researchers, our developers on the on the quantum applications can be developed. And since the real time the real quantum computers are not easily available to all. So the simulator is a step towards knowing what applications you can build, and then uh, we are equally more and more compute also, quantum compute, to our researchers to build the real-time applications after they have graduated from the simulator. So ministry already has one program where we are giving the quantum facility for the various researchers on credit basis, and many more such initiatives are going to come from the ministry for making available the compute resources in the area of quantum. So I think this is this is a an apt platform. I see that there are more than 900 registrations today, and that shows the keenness and the curiosity in our researchers to work and to know more about the simulator. I am very confident that this QSim tool will have more and more usage, and our presenter later will be giving you the the link and the place where you can actually uh, access the the QSim, and use it for developing your own applications and for the research activity. So I think that the team has made a very good simulator at present. It addresses it has capability of simulation for 20 qubits. We'll be taking it up to 50 qubits at a later stage, and but it will not stop there. I'm confident. This we are also will be also giving the real-time compute system. So it will be complete resource which will be available for all the researchers, and to increase the more and more user base of the technologies. Thank you, and I hope that this 1 month training program will help all the participants in building up a good foundation in the quantum computing area, and also provide a platform for interaction with experts in this area. And I would really hope that later on CDAC and IT Roorkee also have physical such trainings where the participants can interact, and then also maybe identify some mentors for their activity, or for research activities and so on, which will greatly help them in building a good work of our quantum research. So thank you again for inviting me, and for being the part of this initiative, and wishing all the success to this quantum. Thank
Thank you, ma'am. May I now invite our guest of honor, Professor Kamal Kishore, Director IIT Roorkee, to kindly address the participants and share his valuable insights.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Shumiti Sunita Varma ji, Group Coordinator and Scientist ji, MATI. Sri Manoj Jain ji, HOD, MATI. Sri Anup Kumar ji, HOD, CDAC. Professor Sugata Gangopadhyay, HOD, Computer Science, IIT Roorkee. Srimati Lakshmi Ishwaran, Senior Director and Center Head, CDAC. Dr. Anup, again CDAC Hyderabad, and Vandana ji, the co-host of this. So, and all the participants, guests, a very good morning, and on behalf of IIT Roorkee, also it's my pleasure to welcome all the participants for this 1 month program, which is a very important program, and most important is that it is an indigenously developed simulation software QSim. When the nation is always talking, right, our Honorable Prime Minister is always talking about Make in India concept, self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think this is the one of the steps where the ISC Bangalore, CDAC, and IIT Roorkee has taken and got this project with the support of MATI, and came to this level from where now this QSIM software is available for all the participants or all the scientists, research scholars, and students of the nation. I'm sure that this kind of software, when we talk about the high-speed computational techniques, and mostly the silicon-based, or a kind of, right, when you talk about semiconducting material, lot of R&D is being done in that area of material development. This kind of, when we talk about quantum, is much above in terms of the analyzing the data. When we talk about sustainability, when we talk about how to develop the industrial technology, whether it is related to defense or space science technology, climate change, sustainability, then there is a need, right, to develop the simulation package which can respond at a much faster rate. And at the same time, because the quantum, when you talk about quantum simulation, it is very sensitive in analyzing the data. There may be, when we talk about, when we keep on discussing on this point, there may be some flaws also in the simulation, and which need to be worked on. I'm sure that because the software is now available and all the research scholars should use it, and in our new education policy, also I think this course should be made mandatory, because we believe now in multidisciplinary approach, and all branches of science and engineering need to work on these kind of simulation packages, because the problem is not of one branch of science and engineering. Problem is a multidisciplinary type. And when we talk about the concept of vocal for local or vocal for global, then these kind of, when the students are working on several startup activities in different institutes, then again there is a need that this multi-institutional approach like the QSim has been developed should be made more and more at a speedy rate. And when you talk about in terms of development of technologies, when you talk about application of these type of QSim softwares, then there is a need also that, as Dr. Verma has also said, that how to use it for the societal application. So when we talk societal application, see, the healthcare is very important, the kind of food, clean water, potable water, and there are several kind of, like if you look at the Uttarakhand, there are local issues and some kind of the disasters, when we talk about climate change, and how these softwares can be used to understand, to analyze the data, and how these can be used further to mitigate those problems when we talk about glacier melting, when we talk about cloud busting, or when we talk about the landsliding. So these are also, I think the simulation tools would be helpful, and that's why I want that, I request all these coordinators, CDAC and IIT Roorkee, that we should work jointly and look at how these softwares can be used for these kind of application at a speedy rate. We need to collaborate with different organizations like medical institutes also for the healthcare application, so that when we talk about the new tools like artificial intelligence, data science, 5G, 6G technology, then I feel that we need to make all these different areas of researchers come together at one platform and develop this kind of technology within the country. Like Param is another example, right? We have the Paramnaga already at IIT Roorkee. And these things are to be done at local levels or at the national levels with the support of different organizations. And when you talk about the domain of quantum technology, it is very wide, right? There are main 4 domains which I could learn, that quantum communication, quantum simulation, quantum computation, quantum sensing and methodology. All these 4 domains are very important, and there is a need to work that how these 4 domains can be used and how this QSIM can help in solving and mitigating the problems, right, which are related to different areas of science and engineering. So our research scholars are backbone. Our students are the backbone for these, using these kind of softwares. And in fact, when they use these kind of software, and I just said that there is a need to look forward for more and more startup activities. And I'm sure that when they learn this software, this is just the beginning. QSIM is a beginning, and we have to go more and more, or miles to go, and sky is the limit. So for the young students, it's the opportunity, learn these and then look forward that how these can be extended further with the support of METI, CDEC, or all other institutes of national importance and universities. So this is what I feel. I am not an expert in quantum technology, but I know that Qdots and all these things are coming up in a big way. So at the same time, because we already have a here center of excellence also and economics, all these science, engineering, what we call STEM, have to come forward and then look forward this kind of technology. I'm sure that there is a good number of women participants also in these, whatever the 5,000 who are registered, and today I came to learn there are 900. So I think there should be a good number of women participants also in the program, because we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that is also important that our young women researchers should learn these kind of softwares and then become the again the leader in the that is in the area of the quantum science and technology. So with these words, I wish that this program a great success. I'm sure that Dr. Gangopadhyay and team of CDEC will take care of all the issues related to what the running the program for. This is 1 month program, and I think how the participants can be motivated throughout the weekends. This program is being running during the weekend. So how you can motivate throughout them during the weekend, that will be a challenge for you. But I think the COVID, 2 years of this COVID has given us that kind of opportunity that how the program can be run now through the online mode also. And these students and the participants and researchers now have the exposure, and they have made their mind in such a way that while sitting in isolation, they can attend the program, and they will look forward that how this program can be made lively through the interactions, through the question answer sessions. And later on, I think there must be some live labs also, which will be helpful for these participants. I'm sure that Dr. Gangopadhyay will work how this course can be made compulsory for every undergrad students who will be joining IIT. So, and this can be extended to all the IITs, all the other engineering colleges. So I think at the end, I again thank Dr. Varma and the entire MATI team for supporting the institutes for this kind of very important mission mode simulation package. Thank you very much. Namaskar and Aapka Din Shubh ho.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Now I would like to request Shri Anup Kumar, Associate Director, CDEC Hyderabad, to please deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you, Vandana. So before delivering my vote of thanks, actually I'm just seeing that almost more than 1,000 participants have already joined, and there are a lot of queries from their side. They are asking whether recordings will be available. Sunita madam has also asked whether some kind of mentoring will be possible or not possible. So I would just address those queries briefly, and then I will just carry forward for my vote of thanks. So certainly, just all the participants, please note that the recording will certainly be available, and whoever will be showing the interest, the continuous mentors will be provided not only during this program, but even beyond this program also. You would be in touch with those mentors, and you can surely benefit with that actually. Okay, so I hope I have clarified that, and further queries will be clarified during this course of action of this when this program will be delivered. So now I would just switch to my vote of thanks. So good morning to all the esteemed guests, honorable guest of honor, Professor Kamal Kishore Pant sir, Director IIT Roorkee, Srimati Sunita Varma madam, Group Coordinator and Scientist G MIT, our parent ministry, Shri E. Magesh sir, Director General CDEC. Unfortunately, he could not join today. He had to have for the another meeting, so he could not be available. Shri Manoj Jain sir, Director R&D in IT Group, MIT, Professor Sugata Gangopadhyay sir, HOD Computer Science Department, IIT Roorkee, Srimati Lakshmishwari madam, Center Head CDEC Hyderabad. So it is a great honor for me to get this opportunity to thank you all the dignitaries. On behalf of CDEC and IIT Roorkee, I would really like to express my gratitude to all the esteemed delegates for gracing this inauguration ceremony for start of this quantum computing training course. I extend my gratitude to our honorable guest of honor, Professor Kamal Kishore Pant sir, Director IIT Roorkee, to take out time from his extremely busy schedule to grace this event. Thank you, sir, for inspiring and encouraging all the students and all other gatherings. I would like to thank Sunita Varma madam for taking out time from her busy schedule to address the students and motivating them. And I would really like to thank Shri Manoj Jain sir, Director R&D in IT Group, MIT, and Shri Rahul Nehwalji from R&D in IT Group for providing all the support during execution of this project and also during the other activities which we have been doing with the support of MIT. Then I would like to thank Shri E. Magesh sir, Director General CDEC. So he could not be available, as I already mentioned. So he has been a continuous guiding force for all our efforts, all our endeavors, and he has been guiding all CDEC in making the best efforts, best outcome of the R&D activities. I would like to thank Professor Sugata Gangopadhyay sir. This training program is being conducted under his able guidance. And sir, actually, I really would like to thank that you have been always reachable, whatever the issues with respect to the execution of this project, not only this project, even the earlier training programs, whatever we have been doing that, you have been really, your guidance, your help in all aspects have been really wonderful. I really like to appreciate that actually, sir. Always reachable and very say kind of a reachable professor I have seen in my life, sir. And I'm sure that all the students will learn a lot under his guidance and with him during this 1 month course, and subsequently also he will be ready to support all the interested participants. Then I would like to thank Lakshmishwari Madam, our center head, CDEC Hyderabad, for taking out time and motivating the students. So Madam has always been like guiding us, supporting us in all our activity from CDEC Hyderabad perspective. Further, like as has already been told by all the eminent speakers, quantum computing is a cutting-edge technology that is developing very fast and showing tremendous potential for the future. There is a necessity of creating the skilled workforce in quantum computing in the country, and this training program is really aiming to do so. It is up to us to ensure that the India reaches a leadership position in this technology. So on this occasion, I would like to thank our research collaborators, IIT Roorkee, IIC Bangalore, for their significant contributions in development of India's indigenous quantum computer simulator QSim and coming up with this focused training program on quantum computing. In the end, I must thank all the organizations, all the organizers from CDEC and IIT Roorkee, especially Mr. Jyotisharan from IIT Roorkee and Mr. Vivek Nanwal, Vandana Chaturvedi, Mr. Jagdish Babu and Tapasani from CDEC. So thank you all, thank you everyone, and I welcome all the students to please enjoy this program, take maximum out of this program, and I'm sure that by end of this program, like you will be able to have a good foundation and you will really be developing good interest in quantum computing. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. With this, we have come to end of the inaugural session. I thank all the dignitaries for joining this event. We shall now proceed formally with the first session of this course. May I now request Professor Sugata Gangopadhyay sir to please start the session.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
So should I, good morning. So we will start the session in 2-3 minutes time. So I will just take a 2-3 minutes break, and then now it is 10, within 2 minutes I am starting. So please be on.
The privileges to you, sir. You can check it like whether you are able to share or not, sir.
Yes, I will do the sharing. Yes, can you see my slides?
Yes, sir. We are able to see your slides, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. We can see, sir.
Sure. So just one moment. I'll just take 2 minutes, and after that I will start. Yeah. Hello. So let us start now. So are you able to hear me? Hello. Are you able to hear me? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see the chat. So yes, I can see the chat, and so please immediately tell me if you are if you have any problem in hearing me. All right. So good morning. So the thing is that we are there are many people joining here, and it is a wonderful experience to be talking to so many people at the same time. Now we will be in this course we will be talking about okay. So in this course, we will be every weekend we will be talking about quantum computing and some very basic aspects. So we will start from very basics. And also another important thing is that this will be something adjacent to a situation that many of us face, that like when we see this, there are many specialized knowledge, like the knowledge of quantum mechanics, there is a knowledge of very high level mathematics. So what we are trying to do is that to keep all these things at the minimum level so that we can understand what is going on. So that is the main aim of the project, of this particular course. Once we know what is going on and in a way completely, then we can read more according to our need and then proceed ahead in different directions. Another point over here in this particular course is that we will be introducing the simulators. So as we know that IBM has a simulator that is a part of which is freely accessible to everyone. So we will show that, and after that we will show the QSim simulator. That is a simulator, the backend developed by us by using the same features of IBM in the front end. So we will see how to translate from the Qiskit or QSM simulator to the our QSim simulator. So that is what we will be seeing. So the first thing, so this first today's lecture will be for the very beginning. I mean, it will start. I mean, so there is we are not assuming any special background. So the point is that, so here as you see that this is introduction to quantum computing. Now before we introduce, okay, so when you see quantum computing, then you will see that people are talking about qubits. The full form of qubit is quantum bits. So Q comes from QU of quantum, and this is bits. And as you know, the full form of bits, we can say it is a binary digit. In the classical computer, this is a binary digit is an object that can be in two states. Either it is 0 or this is 1. All right. So in order to understand what a qubit is, we have to understand, have to have a quick glance as what do we mean by a binary digit. Okay, so let us see this. So that is a bit. Now, if I ask, when I take an offline course, then I ask the students that what do you mean by a bit? Then people say that no, it is, it is something that can be in 0 or 1 or things like that. And it is actually relatively correct. I mean, everyone has some idea basically. So we can, if we want to be somewhat formal, we can say that look, a binary digit or a bit, we can think of it as a system which can take which can be in two states, either a 0 or a 1. So I can map these two states in two distinct points in the plane. So I can say that, okay, this is the point 0 and it is the point 1. This is how I may represent a bit. We can also say that, okay, fine, we have a coordinate axis like this. This is the 0 and this is the 1. So I have a system that is either here or here. So that is what, now this system may be a flip-flop, this system may be many other things. So that is more or less what we have in bits. Now the question is that, so what are the things that we expect that I should be able to do when I'm talking about bits? So I will introduce one empty slide and then I will tell you that. Let me introduce one empty slide. So this is about bits. Bits. So I should be able to store a bit. I should be able to create a bit. Suppose I have a system, I have a bit. So I should be able to set it to 0 or 1. Set a bit, that is a binary digit, to the state 0 or 1. Let us say I write it a little informally as I please. So if I want, I have a bit, so I can store a 0 or a 1. It's a system. After all, it's a system. I can store it at the state 0 or the state 1. So as I please, So I can call this that it is a writing thing, right? So this is what I'm writing. So I can write something on the bit. So I did 0 or 1. Then second, then of course I can read it. Clear. So I should be able to read what I have written. So that's also something I take for granted. And I also take for granted that if I read, nothing will happen to the system. For example, if you look at the computer, then I have a doc file. All right, after all, we know that it is a sequence of bits. Now I know that I can type, I can store some text in a doc file, and then when I want, I should be able to read what I have written. And I have, this is something very much inside me, that I know that I expect that whenever I read something, nothing is going to be destroyed, that it is going to stay as it is. And I somehow expect that my computer will store whatever I have written. That is whatever, I mean, there is a huge number of bits and I should be able to align them in some states and they will kind of stay there for a very long time. So the storage. So I should be able to store for essentially forever. Whatever I have written, forever. Well, is it forever really? We don't know. We expect that it is forever, no matter how many times I read it. So these are the things that are very much inside very much inside us, that we know that these are the things that we should be able to do. If we are not able to do, then what is the use of a system? If okay, so there is no use. That is inside me. But in the case of quantum computing, what we will see, that we will be talking about qubits, that are quantum bits. Let me make it little thinner. Quantum bits. All right, qubits. Now what we know is that we can create qubits, we can put them in states. So what is a qubit? If someone asks you what is a qubit, then you can kind of say, okay, it is a system. It is a quantum system. It is a quantum mechanical system that can be completely characterized by its state. Now, how its state looks like, we will tell you later, but there is a state. If I tell you some numbers and all, it is completely characterized. What numbers, I will tell you later. So it is a quantum mechanical system. And so the system is specified by its state. I will tell you what is the state, what is the meaning of a state of a single qubit system. But once a state is known, the question is that, can I create a quantum state? And in any state, that can I create a quantum bit, and that is a quantum system, can I set it to a particular state, any state? The answer is yes, I can do that. There is mechanism, at least in principle, I can do that. Now, so this part is okay, I can write. Now then the next question is that, can I read? The answer is actually no. That we know that my reading capability is extremely limited. Our reading capability is extremely limited. You will ask, of course, what does it mean? I mean, reading capability limited. I mean, but this is something that we are going to discuss this week. What do we mean by writing and reading a quantum bit? And of course, what a quantum bit is. Reading capability is very limited. And then the question is, can I store it? This is a huge question. No one knows that how to store a quantum bit for a very long time. And actually, if you read a quantum bit, you will get a partial information, or rather say you will get a information, a probabilistic information, in non-deterministic information. We will tell what it is, but after that, that qubit state will be destroyed. It will be changed to something. So we are in a situation where we are talking about a system through which we want to store information, but the reading capability we can write, but the reading capability limited. And we know if I read, then the system is going to be destroyed. It will be changed to something else. Then someone will ask a question. Then if you have such a limited machine, if you have got such a limited system, then what is the use of that? And that is what we are going to explore. But first, let us go back once more and see how the books will begin. So in a book, you will see people will write things like this. A quantum bit or a qubit is a fundamental unit of quantum information processing, just as a bit is a fundamental unit of classical information processing. A single qubit state is represented by a pair of complex numbers AB, where mod A square plus mod B square is equal to 1. So a single qubit state can exist in an infinite number of states, whereas a bit can exist only in 2 states. So this is where we are coming to over here. Again, I will open a empty slide and say what I have written over here. So a qubit is a single qubit is a quantum mechanical system. A single qubit is a quantum mechanical system that is completely specified by a pair of complex numbers AB called its state vector, with a constraint. It is not just any two pair of complex numbers, with a constraint. And what is the constraint? Satisfy the equality or the equation mod a square mod b square equal to 1. And now what is mod a square? So this a is a complex number, so I can write it as alpha 1 plus I times alpha 2 where alpha 1 comma alpha 2 are real numbers and I square is equal to minus 1. So mod a square is alpha 1 square plus alpha 2 square. Similarly, if b is beta 1 plus I times beta 2, then mod b square is equal to beta 1 square plus I times beta 2 square. Sorry, not of course not I times, plus beta 2 square. There is another way of looking at it. I can talk about the conjugate of a complex number, that is, right, a conjugate, that is alpha 1 minus I times alpha 2. So this is again a complex number. Now if I write a times a conjugate, then it is alpha 1 I times alpha 2 and alpha 1 minus I times alpha 2. And if I multiply, then I say it's alpha 1 square minus I times alpha 1 alpha 2 plus I times alpha 2 alpha 1, and then minus I square times alpha 2 square. This will get cancelled, so I will get I square is minus 1. So I will get alpha 1 square plus alpha 2 square. So this is how I can look at this. So this is so what I am telling over here is that a quantum mechanical system is that can be specified by a pair of complex numbers whose modular square is equal to 1, that is in the state space. So that is called a qubit, a single qubit. Now there is another question, that how do you physically realize this single qubit? And that is what in the next lecture Jyotish Sharan is going to take it up. So he will tell how a single qubit is realized. I am not going to do it. I am not going to look into that right now. We will just see that what we can do with this. So just as in a classical sense, a system can be in 0, 1. Now I have a situation when a system can be specified by the state of that is a pair of complex number with this property. So when we are writing a qubit, then I can pictorially represent it in this way. I can do something like this. Let me take this grid. So I can write something like this, where I am saying that this is not a real line, but it is a complex line. So this is single line, that is a plane, complex plane. I am writing as a line. This is another complex plane. So it is difficult to, we need some imagination to appreciate this, but we have that imagination. So here, this is a complex plane. This is a complex plane, and this is a vector. I am writing as A and B. Let us assume that this point is A0, and let us assume that this point is 0B. So this is B, this is A. So this is my notation. So this thing, this point, this AB, wait a moment. If I am saying that, so I will, what I will do is that if this is the point, so I will drop over here. So this point. So this is the point that is AB, and this is the point 0B. So in the state space, my state space is C cross C. The state space under consideration is C cross C. In the case of classical computer, the state space was only 0, 1, the 2 points. Here it is C cross C with a restriction that mod A square, mod B square equal to 1. So vectors here are somehow they are related to that, they are specifying a state of a qubit. Now then see that what I can do is that if you consider all these vectors, then they will form a vector space. So it is like this. The set of all vectors in C cross C is a vector space, and therefore I can write it like this. Let us say AB, I can write it as A 1 0 plus B 0 1. Now, what are these things? This is a set of vector that is called a basis vector. So this is what I will do next. What is the meaning of a basis vector? And then I will go to some other notation. So let us understand this, and now let us go to the next slide. Now there are some writing conventions. So these are some writing conventions. See, like this. So I told you that to start with, that look, I'm interested in a vector like this, 1 0 and 0 1. And any vector, any state vector can be written in this way: A times 1 0 plus B times 0 1. Now I tell you that I am introducing some writing conventions. I am denoting this vector by this symbol, and this is called ket 0. And I am denoting this vector by this symbol, and this is called ket 1. So ket 1. All right, so here I can write it is A times ket 0 plus B times ket 1. Yeah, that is exactly what I have written here. And we must not forget this condition. that whatever we do with these vectors, if that vector has to be a valid single qubit state, then these coefficients mod square must add up to give us 1. Next. I have already done this recall, so we don't have to do this. This is recalling complex number. We all know this. So again, go back to this. I told that a single bit system can exist in one of the two states, 0 and 1. I have drawn it over here. In a classical computer, it is possible to set a bit to 0 or 1 state. It is also possible to read, measure that state, and reading from a bit does not change the state. On a quantum computer, it is possible to create a single qubit state. So what I have told about a single qubit, there are quantum mechanical objects with quantum mechanical properties where I can set the states. But reading and storing both are problems. All right. So this is what I am doing. So this is what I have explained just some time back. Now I come to the idea of a basis. So basis of a vector space. Now we can of course discuss the basis of a vector space in a more general context for very high like for larger than 2-dimensional vector spaces. But to get our ideas clear, we are now talking only about 2-dimensional vector spaces. So we are only talking about basis of C2. So this set C2 is essentially Cartesian product of C with C. So I have got all the pairs of complex numbers where A and B belongs to C. Now we know that if we add any two pairs like this, we will get another pair like this, and some other properties are there. I'm not going to say all those things. That is linear algebra. We can do it later. And we also know that I can multiply this vector by a single complex number. So if I have got a complex number C belonging to C, then just one moment. Sorry. So the point is that we also know that if there is a complex number and then I write AB, C times AB, that is going to give me C times A into C times B. So that is kind of the vector is going to be in the same direction, but its magnitude will increase. All these intuitions are same as real valued vector spaces over real numbers, but here only the thing is that instead of the scalars are complex numbers over here. We know this. Now, roughly speaking, there are two ideas that we will come to it sometime. I mean, if and most of you must be knowing it. There is a question of linear dependence and independence. Linear dependence and independence. So I do not want to start with a definition of linear dependence and independence. We will know that later. But basic idea is that there are some building blocks of a vector space. I mean, what we have that C2 is in general infinite. There are infinite many points. But what I know that if you give me two vectors, let us say these two vectors, 1, 0 and 0, 1, then any vector in C2 can be written as a linear combination of 1, 0 and 0, 1, and that is absolutely evident. We have already seen this. And it is also, we know that we cannot do it with smaller number of vectors. I cannot generate all the vectors in situ by a single vector in situ. That is also very much evident. And to be very specific, we also know that if I have got a linear combination like this, 0, 1 equating to 0, 0, then only choice is A equal to 0 and B equal to 0. So, so technically speaking, this is the smallest subset of this vector space, a set of vectors which can generate all the vectors of the subspace of the vector space. And if I have a situation like this, then this is called a basis. And we know that we can, a basis is not unique. We can have many bases, but the number of elements in a basis is always the same, whatever be the basis. So the question is that whether there are other bases there. Of course, there are other bases, and like these are other bases, some other examples of bases. So let us go to the next slide. So here, I would like to show how to transform the bases in a slightly informal way. We will need it just to get used to it. So the point is that suppose I have a basis like this, 1, 0 and 0, 1, and in my new notation I will be writing get 0, get 1. Please follow me here, because many of you may think that it is something that is very, very elementary, but you know, this is needed, because I am sure that many of you, it is a good recall for many of the participants. Surely you have all done this, but still we have to know this, and also getting used to these symbols. Now suppose I am talking about another basis. So this is basis B1. I'm talking about another basis. So this is same as this. I'm talking about another basis. Suppose I write it as over here, as you see this one. So this is 1 by square root 2, 1, 1, and 1 by square root 2, 1 minus 1. 1 by square root 2, 1, 1, and 1 by square root 2, 1 minus 1. Then the first question is that can I write this as discrete and all that? The answer is yes. How to write this? Let us see. 1 by square root of 2 1, 1 is equal to 1 by square root of 2 1, 0 plus 1 by square root of 2 0, 1, and according to our notation, this is 1 by square root of 2 get 0 plus 1 by square root of 2 get 1. So I can even write something like this. It is get 0 plus get 1 by square root of 2. Again, 1 by square root of 2, 1 minus 1 is 1 by square root of 2, 1, 0 plus 1 by square root of 2, 1 minus 1. And therefore I can write it as this: 1 by square root of 2 get 0 plus 1 by, wait a minute. Yeah, this here I made a mistake. It will be 0 minus 1. So 0 minus 1. Yeah. So therefore I will have something like this is minus 1 by square root of 2 of ket 1, and therefore this is ket 0 minus ket 1, square root 2. And I will write this as, this is a notation, I will write this as ket plus and I will write this as ket minus. Therefore, I will write it as ket plus and this is ket minus, this is a new symbol. All right. Now the question is that suppose I have, now the question is that suppose I have a vector written as a linear combination of ket 0 and ket 1, can I change it to a linear combination of ket plus and ket minus? The answer is yes. So I can use use many things over here. For example, I can use this. I will use this for our purpose, just this little, because I have developed here these relations. So I can essentially write something like this: ket plus is equal to say 1 by square root 2 into ket plus is ket 0 plus this, and square root 2 into ket minus is ket 0 minus ket 1. And now if I add these two, I will get 2 times ket 0 is equal to square root of 2 ket plus plus ket minus, and therefore ket 0 is equal to ket plus plus ket minus divided by square root of 2. Now if I, so I am considering these two equations. So if I now subtract, then I'm going to get square root of 2 yeah. So it is going to be square root of 2, sorry, it is going to be this, let us see. So I'm subtracting, so I will get, these things will survive. So I will have 2 times ket 1 is equal to square root of 2 ket plus minus ket minus. All right. So I can write ket 1 is equal to like this. And now suppose I have a point, I know any point I can write as a ket 0 plus b ket 1. I can change the basis. So instead of ket 0, I will put this, and instead of ket 1, I will put this. So I'm just replacing these things. Now, if we gather the terms, then what will happen? We will have a plus b square root of 2 into ket plus a minus b into square root of 2 to ket minus. We will have this. So what I'm seeing is that if I can write any point of the plane as a linear combination of ket plus and ket minus. And we can also, of course, show very formally that these two things are linearly independent, and therefore this ket plus and ket minus also forms a basis. The set containing ket plus and ket minus also forms a basis of the same set. Similarly, this is another set which is if you translate to the ket symbols, then you will find that this is equal to 1 by square root of 2 ket 0 plus I times 1 by square root of 2 ket 1. This vector is this, and this vector is 1 by square root of 2 ket 0 minus I by square root of 2 ket 1. So basically this is one vector is K0 plus I times K1 divided by square root of 2. The other vector is divided by square root of 2. Again, you can set up the linear equations like this and do the changing. Then you can see that anything that is written as A times Ket 0 plus B times Ket 1 can be represented as two other with respect to other bases. And this is going to be very important to understand several things. So this is something that we have to keep note. Next. So the next question is that this is about inner product. So we have seen in usual this vector space and all these things that there is something called inner product. We have about vectors. We know that if we have two vectors, what is the inner product? In this particular space, we have a different definition of inner product. Now, I have on my slides, I have given a formal definition of inner product. I will just show you that. So somewhere over here, if you go further, like see, one can define inner product like this and something else like this, but I do not want to do this right now. I will go upstairs and do inner product just for two-dimensional space on C2. So what do we mean by inner product and what happens with these inner products? So for that, again, I will introduce some blank slides and write down some things and then come to this thing. All right, so this is one blank slide, maybe another blank slide. All right, so we are talking about inner products. Now, inner product, the name inner product may not be familiar to you, but there is another name that is familiar that is called a dot product. So we know that we have two vectors in real vectors like this. Suppose this is designated by A comma B as usual, and this is designated by C comma D. Then we know that the dot product, suppose this is called U vector, and this is called V vector. The dot product of U dot V we do in class 12, that is AC plus BD. Here it is almost same, but there is a little twist to this definition. So here we have got two quantum states, two quantum state vectors, and one vector let us designate by psi, and let us call it AB. Actually, this is A get 0 plus B get 1. So I can write vectors like this, and I can write them as other combination of other basis elements. Another vector like this thing phi, let us call it CD. It is essentially C get 0 plus D get 1. Now the inner product of psi and phi is written in this way. And it is precisely conjugate of A into C plus complex conjugate of B into D. Now you will ask me that why do we take conjugate? Why don't we get just the numbers? There are reasons, but we cannot discuss this in the first course. We have to get used to this idea. But only one motivating factor may be this. If I take the same vector, let us say psi, and inner product it with psi, then according to our rule, C will be A and D will be B. So I will have A conjugate of A times A plus conjugate of B times B. So this is mod A square, as I have done already, plus mod B square, as I have done already. And so what is this? This is the length of the vector, just like here. Suppose I do for u dot u, here I would have got a square plus b square. I don't have to take this mod a square because a, b are real numbers in this context. So this is really something different. This is different. This is not quantum. This is the usual thing, right? Now, this part. So the point is that it is. So what I'm guaranteed that if I take a vector and inner product, I get square of its length. And here I am getting something, whatever it is a real number. And if it is a real number, if I take any two vectors, I get real numbers, a real number corresponding to it. This is corresponds to the length of that vector. And then I can actually compare the lengths. And so I can define something called a norm. This is a good word for length. And norm of a vector like psi, this is square root of this guy, which is essentially square root of mod a square plus mod b square. And we know that if it is a vector in C cross C and it is a quantum state, it is a valid quantum state, I know that mod a square mod b square has to be equal to 1, therefore this guy has to be equal to 1. So when I'm talking about quantum computing, then I'm talking about quantum states. When I'm talking about single qubits, I'm talking about state vectors of those qubits, and those vectors are complex valued combinations of some complex combination of some two vectors, and their norms, that the lengths are all one. So this is the system that we are looking at. A little more to the notation side, this is the Dirac bracket notation. When I told you of a thing like this is what I call ket. So this is ket psi. Psi is just a symbol. Suppose it is a vector like this, AB. Now and let us say another vector is there. This is what? This is ket phi. This is CD. Then I will introduce a symbol like this. I will call it bra psi. Now this bra psi is conjugate transpose of the vector. It is simply that. This. So what is this? This is conjugate transpose. And now, if I take ket psi and bra psi and ket phi just side by side, then what happens? It is A, B, C, D. And then what is this? This is this. This is precisely the inner product. And that is what I write. This I write as, this I call bracket psi phi. So see, it's also a very nice notation system where we can do many things very easily. So we can do many things very easily. Like you know, when you are seeing this system, this notation, then you may think that what is this? Then I'm seeing this, and you will say, what is this? You have to know that ultimately this is this bra is something over here. This is essentially this, and then the ket is ket size as it is, and therefore these are matrix. These are, after all, these are matrices, and this is a matrix multiplication, and then you get the result, and this will work as inner product. So as you see here, I have done the same thing. I've got all these things typed. So this, of course, these lectures will be available to you. So we'll see this. Now we come to the idea of orthogonality. Like if you have two vectors, as I said, you know, suppose AB and CD, and suppose the inner product is equal to 0, then they are said to be orthogonal. So I can introduce the symbolism here. So I'll like this. I was talking, this is what? This is, if I choose to denote psi by AB and denote phi by CD, I mean, or denotes AB by psi and CD by psi, then this is this inner product. This is inner product. This is precisely this. This is precisely this. This is equal to this PD, and if this is 0, then psi and phi will be said to be orthogonal vectors. All right. Then, if on the top of that, the vectors, each of the vectors are also of length 1, that is the case of quantum states. Suppose this is psi and this is phi. As I have written here, this means that psi is equal to this. Okay, it's 1, and of course phi equal to 1. Then we say that, and we have already seen that psi phi, and we can verify that phi psi, bracket phi psi and bracket psi phi, both are zeros. Then a basis containing vectors like this is called an orthonormal basis. All right, so this is what we have. I have got many examples of orthonormal bases like this. You can check that 1001, that is essentially get 0, get 1. This is orthonormal. You can check that here. We can also check that this basis and this basis both are orthonormal bases. So this is called the Hadamard basis, and this is called the Nega-Hadamard basis. So there are different bases. So there are infinite number of orthonormal bases. Okay. So, and this symbol I have already defined just in my lecture. So these are the lectures. We have already got these things. Okay, so I think that I have done some basic things, and now it will be interesting to answer some questions if possible, because I've talked for about 45 minutes. We should give a little, some 2-3 minutes rest at least, and take some questions. So if you have questions, please post them and I would be very happy to answer them. Yes, Jasveer Singh has raised hands, so slowly, can we take it? Any possibility of taking the questions in chat? Stop sharing. Yeah, so I will temporarily stop sharing and I will see the chat and answer the questions. So stop sharing and see the chat. See the chat. Where is the chat? Yes, immediately I have got the one of the best questions that I have asked myself. Why complex numbers? Wait a moment. There should be a way of. Yes, I am going back in time. Yeah. So now it is 11 o'clock. So I am looking at the questions that were posted. Some 10:50. Okay. Is inner product also called kernel? No. It is content. I mean, usually I have not seen this thing. Yeah? So maybe. Then qubit is 2-dimension, qubit is 3-dimension, and you can generalize to any finite dimension d, then it is called a qubit. Yes, of course. This is Varsha Tiwari's answer. And mathematically, Varsha Tiwari, to everyone, mathematically reading is just applying an operation on qubit which satisfies some conditions. You can see quantum postulates for that, of course. Okay, so then let us see. To read, we need to measure it. Yeah, measure it, of course. I mean, we are coming to the measurements. Yes. We can't define inner product on finite dimensional vector space like FQ. What is FQ? Are you talking about finite fields? We can define inner product on finite fields. But in classical coding theory, I have seen that they are modifying definition. Oh, of course. I mean, if you are doing on finite fields, then you have to modify the definition. But they are still inner products. It is better. Okay. How long this webinar will last? Probably up until 1 p.m. max. So to start, Santhia has written, Santhia has written, to start with quantum computing, what is the basic math? We have to be clear, and actually that is what we are trying to address to. I mean, like, we are actually giving an idea that what are the maths. So please show slide 14 once more. I will please note down, we'll show slide 14 once more. Books, can you refer to? Arya Sri has asked that, can you refer to any book? We will definitely refer to books. Why complex numbers? John Bosco. John Bosco has asked why complex numbers. Yes, there is so it is something that will definitely one asks that why complex numbers? Ultimately, we can have vectors in real R2, and why they cannot be, we cannot talk about that. Uh, the fact is that because of the to explain quantum mechanical behaviors of quantum mechanical systems, what people have seen, the physicists have seen, that you cannot restrict the state space to R2. You have to have a state space which is uh, uh, in C2, and of course there is some constraint. The constraint is that normality constraint, but it is not possible to specify a quantum state of even a single qubit in all the possible states by taking only R2. Now, why it is so, for this we have to look at more of physics, so we are not going into going into this. So that is dependent on that. A bit is only 0 or 1, but how it is taking value a plus ib. Now this is what, when I'm talking about a plus ib, then I'm talking about a qubit. No, this a plus ib, that is not a bit, that is coefficient of a qubit. That is not a bit. Shivashish Brahma, I think computational basis is used for measurement and operations. Please correct me if I am wrong. Computational basis is used for measurement and operation, but you can definitely use other bases. Now, John Basco has asked 2 times why complex numbers, and of course, I have told you that, and we can have more enjoyable discussions on that. I mean, of course, that's a very foundational question. Sir, Sahil has written that, sir, I don't know these math concepts. It is tough for me to go forward in the course. What will you suggest? See, that is the point here. Point here for this course is that we are trying to explain these math concepts slowly, and I think one should kind of, if one wants to learn these things, it might be a good idea to follow as much as possible. And then we can have again and again, one can look at these things and learn these things in greater resolution. Jasbir Singh has written that please allow me to unmute. I am actually very sorry, but because of the huge number of participants, I think we thought that we cannot. In this webinar mode, attendees cannot speak, unfortunately. There's a huge number of participants, but we would very much, I do not like to unmute anyone. Actually, I want to listen to everyone. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't want to mute anyone. I do not want to suppress the voice of anyone, but because of this whole situation, we have to do that. We hope that we will be having some offline courses soon. Sir, what is the relation between qubit and superposition? That is what we are coming to very soon. Sir, could you refer a book? Of course, we will do that. Any name of this basis? Yes, computational basis or standard basis. Ankan Jana, any name of this basis 1001? What is the use of this mathematics that we are using? Please give visualization. Actually, unfortunately, we can give some visualization, but quantum mechanics is such that it defies visualization. Actually, it ultimately defies common sense. So we have to accept the world universe in which we live in. So, but we will try to give some visualization soon. So then,
Sorry to disturb you, sir.
Yes.
Sugata sir, sorry to disturb
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Either Vandana ji or Vivek sir, you please see all the comments which are coming in the YouTube as well as in the WebEx WebEx sort area, sir, so that sir can respond, because many queries are coming in the YouTube also. Please see that, sir.
Sure,
So-
sir. Sure. Sir,
Okay,
one more
thank you.
thing, sir. Can you change layout so that Sugata Gangopadhyay sir's whole slide would be shown?
I had to unshare because if I share, I cannot see the chat.
No, that's fine, sir. That's fine, sir. You can go
Okay.
ahead, sir. You can use the
I'm
chart
just
window, sir.
having a
No
little
problem.
bit of chatting. I mean, like, so after
Sure,
that,
sure,
I will
sure.
go to the next thing. So,
Okay, sir.
Hadamard matrix use and all these things, we are coming to this very soon. Yes, so I am going to mute myself for 1 second. My student Jyoti will talk. He will say a few things. Yes.
Yeah, am I audible in the chat? Can someone confirm if you can hear me among the panelists? Yeah, okay, fine. The audience are saying yes, that's good. All right, so regarding questions and comments. So as you guys can see, we have upwards of, around 900 participants in this webinar. So I'm monitoring your chat, but even if I were to monitor it in real time and collate all your questions, communicating it to Professor Gangopadhyay and then getting responses for each and every one of them will become a very time-consuming process. So I request people with queries to kindly post your queries when we ask for them, so that we will know when to start noting things down. As I mentioned before in the uh, general chat, if you have some urgent questions, you can post it privately to me. I have been monitoring the chat continuously since the beginning of the session. But the point is, yeah, I've seen upwards of 100 questions that have been asked. Even if I were to transmit all of this to Professor Gangopadhyay or I myself were to attempt answering these questions, we would not have time. We would be sitting here all day and all night. So I just request the attendees to post your questions in the chat when we ask for that, so that we can have some kind of a synchronization. Communicating asynchronously on this webinar will be troublesome for all of us. So that is note one. So in case you have asked some question before and you think it needs to be addressed again, please post that question during the Q&A sessions time. We will announce that. Regarding sharing of materials and slides and all these things for this course, we are working on it, because initially when we started setting this course up, we were not anticipating these many registrants or attendees. So now we are having to alter the modalities of sharing materials and conducting evaluation and all of these things in real time. So as and when they are done, all the information will be communicated to all of you. And of course, depending on the delays introduced, appropriate time will be given to every attendee to deal with these assignments or read the slides. So all of those things will be done. Everything that is being presented will be shared with you. All the videos are being recorded by multiple people. Like, I'm sure people from CDAC are also recording this session and it's being live streamed. I'm personally recording it on my end. I shall also be cutting this and editing it. So you'll have multiple perspectives of this same event available to you at the end of it all. So I request you to bear with us, because this is, at least for me, this is the first time I'm dealing with such a large crowd. We'll make sure everybody gets all the material and all of your questions are addressed. In order for us to do that, we humbly request that you guys post your questions only during the Q&A session. And if you guys want to have conversations with each other, please send private messages. Do not clutter the general chat, because that reduces the readability of the chat stream. So that is all I wanted to say. Professor Gangopadhyay will be back in 1 or 2 more minutes, and we shall resume our session. I have seen some questions regarding eigenfunctions and basis and all of this. I will address this during my session also. So, okay, fine. So Professor Gangopadhyay needs another 1 or 2 minutes for a break. So let me try to answer a few questions. So I'm going as far back as, what is the time? It's 11:15. So I'll go as far back as 11:10 for 5 minutes. And yeah, if you want to say yes, please don't all of you say yes, because scrolling through 200 yes responses takes time. Okay, so superposition and so Varsha Tiwari has asked, quantum computation means using quantum principles like superposition and interference to do computation. So you've seen superposition, but where can interference be used? Examples for this will be covered in the subsequent lectures. So we request that you be patient. So yeah, regarding the slides, I've answered. The Hadamard basis and the Nega Hadamard basis slides, again, like we'll go back and show the slides, but do not worry, all these slides will be shared to you wholesale, so you'll be able to see everything that has been presented by us. So for people who want to see the slides again, rest assured you'll be getting the slides. So then we have quantum memory be possible? That is too general of a question. Any answer to that question at this point will be subjective, like it will be based on an individual's personal opinion. It cannot be considered as a proper objective answer. In my opinion, I don't think it is feasible, nor do I think it is required. You will see why in our subsequent discussions. Is qubit related to an electron state or what? It can be. Again, in my session, I shall try to address these questions. Why we need to learn this and what we get at the end of the course from Vinay. A wonderful question. Why you need to learn this? Well, you have to decide that. And what will you get at the end of this course? Hopefully a bunch of videos, some slides and a certificate. And if you've been paying attention, some knowledge and experience. Orthonormal basis can be used as computational basis. Yes, any orthonormal basis can be used as a computational basis. So now I'll scroll down further. If I've ignored any of your questions, apologies. When we have another question session, please repost your questions. There is a question about Schrödinger equations. I'll address that later. People who have joined late, there is a live stream. Recordings will be posted. You'll be able to catch up. What is the purpose of the basis C2? Professor Gangopadhyay will talk about it again. I will also be referring to it. So kindly hold on. And so, yeah, a bunch of these questions have been repeated. So as you can see, when I'm scrolling down, if you repeat the questions, it will only take me longer to find all of these things. So just ask your question once and leave it at that so that we can actually scroll up and down and fish your questions out. Please don't ask them again and again because you'll be populating the feed. And we will never be able to catch up with 868 people who are in the attendees. Like there is absolutely no way all of us can play catch up with you guys. So just post your question once. A certificate will be provided for all the people who have asked that question. I'm assuming different people have asked it. So people have asked questions about Hilbert spaces. We'll come to Hilbert spaces in a bit. Again, guys, please refrain from responding in the chat. This is, I mean, yeah, I know this is a live stream, but please do not do that again. Please stick to asking only your questions so that we can read the questions and address them. We won't be having lab sessions per se. We'll only be having programming assignments. So you guys can install the necessary libraries and whatnot. And you'll be working locally on your systems. Of course, like access to QSim and other computational platforms is through their respective services. So that is regarding the labs. Can quantum computing be used for antenna design? That question is too niche. I don't know is my honest answer. Maybe, maybe not. Somebody asked, will questions certificates only be given to people who ask questions? No, absolutely not. Like who will get the certificates? We will let you know later. By and large, all of you will be getting certificates. Programming language and all these things, details will be announced in this session itself. Please be patient. How to visualize complex numbers. Again, we'll discuss it in the upcoming session. Okay, so okay, Sarah. There are a bunch of questions. Fine. All right. So there is a question regarding, yeah, so the syllabus of this course has been given in the course brochure. So please go and see what topics are being covered, because some of the things that you're mentioning here is already in our syllabus. So kindly look at the brochure first before requesting for topics. We will take requests at a later point in time. Is a laptop needed? Yes, you will be needing a laptop because there will be some coding assignments. Again, the modalities of these things we will finalize at a later point, because right now nothing is finalized regarding the evaluation and certification procedures for this course. We will let you know as and when they are being done. So do not worry. If there are any problems, they will be addressed. And so, sir, when you begin, kindly address what normalized states are, and just go back to the definition of bra and ket. This is to Professor Gangopadhyay. And yeah, to Sriraj, who's asked if there is a Discord server. Now I'm actively considering that idea. I'll let you know by tomorrow or next week, because yeah, handling this much chat would be much easier on Discord. So I'll let you guys know. So yeah, all further questions I'm not going to address right now, because we need to resume with the sessions. Guys who have questions, please don't post them now. Wait for a bit. When we announce the next Q&A session, post your question, post them once so that we can read all your questions and answer them in one stretch. And for people posting questions, type out your entire question and then send your chat message. Do not send it in chunks. Reading it will be difficult. So please take these things into consideration when dealing with us, because as I mentioned before, there are a lot of you and only a handful of us. So it would be immensely helpful if you guys can adhere to these instructions so that we can have a smooth communication. With that, I'm muting myself and I'm handing control over to Professor Gangopadhyay.
Yes. Hello, welcome back. So I'm back. So I'll be, so there is a question about normalized states. So normalized states means that a state whose coefficients, okay. So the thing is that, so if you have a state like this, suppose you are writing like this. Now, if you have the mod a square plus mod b square equal to 1. So that is where normalization is happening. That is called the normalized state. So we are talking only of normalized states. Now, another question is that Brand-Ket thing. So, see, when I am writing a vector like this, this vector, this, traditionally we write it as ket 0, and this thing, this is as ket 1. And then if you have a vector, any vector, let us say, it can be, of course, of higher dimensions also, but now we are talking about just a single qubit state. Then any single cube, for any single qubit state, the state vector I write like this, get psi, and that is typically a vector AB, and if it is normalized, then of course it is get b mod a square plus mod b square equal to 1, and then it can be a valid quantum state. All right. Now the point is that if I have got two quantum states that I denote by ket psi and ket phi, and suppose ket psi is corresponds to the vector AB, then the psi is this vector AB dagger, which is A conjugate B conjugate. So it is conjugate transpose. So this is, we have to remember this. And if I say bracket, this is psi get phi. So this is a matrix multiplication, that is AB dagger and CD. So AB dagger is A conjugate B conjugate and CD is CD. So this is equal to A conjugate C plus B conjugate D. This is like this. This is inner product. So this is bracket phi psi phi. This is like this. Already. So when you say remote mode, so I don't know whether it's clear to the participant who asked these questions. And now we are going ahead. Now this is something that we hear always, that we people talk about superposition of states and like that, and like for example, people talk about, I mean, it's almost talk about in a many mysterious way. So I don't see a lot of mystery here. Just I will take this. On it. So you will see people are saying different things. So one thing is there that, for example, when you are coming from classical to quantum, then what we do? So we have two states. One state is Ket0 and Ket1. So one thing people will say in a Acha, so Om Prakash Kumar is asking that please repeat orthonormal. So I will talk about orthonormal. So if you have a basis whose vectors are orthogonal and whose norms, each norm of each vector is 1, then it is called a orthonormal basis. Screen is not visible. Is it visible? It is visible. So someone wrote screen is not visible. So, but okay, it is visible. John Basco says it's visible. Okay. All right. See, the point here is that let us kind of look at this point. I mean, from a somewhat straightforward way. So I have classical computers. So classical computers, those are bits. You know, the information is stored as bits. So each bit is 0 or 1. Now, one thing is definitely true that you if you have a quantum computer, at least it should be able to do everything that a classical computer does, at least in principle. Otherwise, the thing is very complicated. Now, so whatever you are storing, whatever way you are representing data in classical computer, you should be able to map that to a quantum computer. So the question is, what will I do with 0? So if I have a bit, so a bit can be in the two states 0 and 1. I have a qubit. Now qubit state is massive. It can be any complex linear combination of Ket0, Ket1. My natural way of mapping, one of the natural way of mapping is to map 0 to Ket0 and 1 to Ket1. Now suppose, think of a mental quantum computer which you can set, I mean, each qubit you can state in Ket0 or Ket1. Then whatever you have in a classical computer, with this encoding, you can write on a quantum computer. In principle, yes, you can do that. The point is that the qubit states, but so n bit string you can write as a n bit qubit, K0, K1 and like that. And even a single qubit, you can write it, it is either you can map it, if it is 0, let us say you are mapping it to K0, if it is 1, you are mapping it to K1. That is all right. But what happens in the case of quantum computing is that even a single qubit can live in a much larger state space than the classical computer. So this is probably the first point where quantum computer is showing us something that classical computers don't show us. In a classical computer, if I keep something in the state 0 or state 1, it will remain as that. In a quantum computer, even if I identify 0 to K0 and 1 to K1, so these are two states only. In general, a single qubit can have all possible states like this. So I write a single qubit can have all possible, any one of all possible states can be in any one of these states. Let me, can exist, can exist in any one of the states represented by this, where this has to satisfy. So you take any two complex numbers whose mod squares add up to 1, that can be state of a qubit. Now if a equal to 1 and b equal to 0, this is K0, so you can assume that this is the 0. 0 corresponds to 0 of bit, and b, a equal to 0, b equal to 1, then you can assume that it is the 1. But a qubit is not restricted there. You can create qubits in so many other states. Now, so you can say that a qubit where a is, which you are writing like this, suppose this is a qubit state, you are writing the qubit state as a K0 plus b K1, you are writing like this, and you are ascertaining that a is not 0 and b is not 0, so it doesn't correspond to the classical bit 0 or classical bit 1. So what does it correspond? It is in a, so we will say that it is in the superposition of the two states 0 and 1. That is all. That is all. This happens because the state space of a qubit is much larger than the state space of a single bit. So therefore, a qubit in principle can store much more information than a single bit. Our question is that it can store, but how long it can store and how to retrieve that information. That is our question. So then there is another thing, that a state may be in a superposition of a particular superposition with a particular basis. So for example, if you look at this, suppose you are considering this state. So this state is psi, and this state is in the superposition of K0 and K1. Why? Because if you see this is 1 by square root 2, 1 by square root 2 K0 plus 1 by square root of 2 K1. This is A, this is B. Neither of them is 0. So this state is in the superposition of two states K0, K1. That is fine. So with respect to the basis K0 and K1, this is in the superposition state. But suppose I take the Hadamard basis. This is the Hadamard basis. and my state is get psi. Get psi is get 0 plus get 1 divided by get 2. So this is actually plus, get plus. So this state is not a superposition state with respect to the Hadamard basis. So this thing, that is why always I write this, that once a superposition, always a superposition. Superposition, if you don't say the basis, doesn't mean anything. So something, a state, quantum state may be in the superposition state with respect to a certain basis, maybe may not be in a superposition state with respect to some other basis. So this is something that we have to remember. Now next, so this is the changing of the basis. So from Hadamard to the standard to Hadamard and all that, this calculation I have done some time ago. All right. And now we come to another aspect of a quantum state. And with that, I will end today's talk and Jyoti will take over. Yes. So we will go to the simulator tomorrow, because already it is becoming very heavy. I have talked for 1.5 hours. I will show you the Qiskit portal and all that, and QSim portal, just like that. But programming thing we will do tomorrow. It will be heavy. I think before that, we would like to ask, before that, we would like to we would like to know how a qubit is realized in physics, in physical world. I'm talking only of mathematics. I'm talking only like, okay, this is a state, this is, there's are numbers, but anyway, these are numbers. How do we represent a qubit on a machine? All right. But now we are going to learn another last two concepts, that is global phase versus relative phase. This global phase versus relative phase. Now, what are they? So, Najib Ahmed questions, qubits, is it possible to determine? We will take in the question. Please wait for a while. I mean, for another 10 minutes or so, I will tell this and then take questions. See. So, we are here. We have a qubit, single qubit like this, and another like this. Now, what we saw is that suppose I have a qubit like this, A get 0 plus B get 1, and we know that is equal to 1. Now, I could say that, look, if I apply e to the power I theta, if I multiply this by e to the power I theta, then I get a state like this, e to the power I theta, A get 0 plus e to the power I theta, B get 1. And now if I take e to the power I theta, A mod square, and e to the power I theta, B mod square, then this is e to the power I theta mod square, A square, e to the power I theta square, B square, and this is 1. This is also 1. So this gives me mod A square plus mod B square is equal to 1. So we know that if I've got a quantum state, A get 0 plus B get 1, and if I all the coefficients, if I multiply by the same complex number with norm 1, then I will get another quantum state. Now the question is that whether these two states, this state and this state, whether these two states are same or not. They look same. because it seems that we have not done anything else. And indeed, they look same. And indeed, they are same states physically. So that is why if a single quantum state is said to differ by a global phase theta, if I can write one as some e to the power I theta of the other, so then they differ by a global phase, and then these two states are the same. But on the other hand, if you have a quantum state, ket psi, which is A ket 0 B ket 1, then you can take the ratio A by B and you can write it as E phi mod A by mod B. You can do that. You can always write a complex number as that argument and the length, and then kind of do that. Now, if you can do that, then you get another angle that is phi. Now, the point is that if you have got two states for which these phi are different, that this phi is called the relative phase. If you see that if two phases, if there are two states which differ by this global phase, then their relative phase also will be same. But if you have two states which have the different relative phases, then we know that they are different states. So please just remember this. We may need it later, we may not need it, but this is a good thing to understand. That if you have A ket 0 plus B ket 1, if I multiply both the coefficients by the same complex root of unity, it's the same unit vector, then they don't differ. But if those things are different, then their relative phase will change and they differ. So that is what I wanted to say. So on my slides, there are some examples of relative phases and all that. And the next one is single qubit measurement. But I think that I have talked a lot, so I will not come to measurement today. Jyoti will talk about how a qubit is realized. We have got 2 days this weekend. Oh, slides will be available for view, all these annotations and all, definitely. So the point is that Jyoti will quantum in blockchain later. So so the point is that measurement I will do later, tomorrow, because tomorrow we have Sunday morning. I will do measurement tomorrow. By that time, I will post these slides so that you can go through these things, and like that, I will take some questions now and then hand over to Jyoti. Global phase will not rotate a state vector. It will. It's actually the quantum states are in a slightly different space than C cross C. It will rotate in C cross C, but I think there is a difference, but we don't go into that. Don't want to go into that geometry. Can you please explain how Hadamard basis remove the superposition? Actually, the superposition depends on basis. That vector was actually a vector of the Hadamard basis. So with respect to that basis, there was no superposition. It was a single basis element. Shalini has written that kindly repeat global phase and relative phase, couldn't understand better. I think that it is little premature. I have quickly told these concepts. Please go through the slides. We won't be needing it right now a lot, so let us keep it that. What is a quantum state? Quantum state is a state of a quantum system. So when I'm talking about a single qubit, then I'm talking about a quantum system, which is a single qubit system, whose state can be defined by two complex numbers. The realization part, Jyoti will tell you. how to calculate global phase. Actually, I think that if you have two vectors, I mean two states, then you can calculate whether they are differing by a global phase or not. So that you can definitely do. So you have taken a ket0 everywhere. Will there be any difference if we take ket1 instead of it? Where I have ket everywhere? I have also taken ket0, ket1. Can there exist a quantum system, quantum system which is described by infinite dimensional Hilbert space? I don't know of these things. How do you, if quantum systems are said to defy the well-established physical laws, where quantum systems don't defy physical laws. I mean, they are themselves physical laws. I mean, they defy common sense. That Jyoti will tell you, I mean, like the physical, how to do it in physical. Is there any importance of global phase because we take modulus, then it's just, that is the point actually. They are like importance means we have to understand this association. Are bras linear functionals? Bras are not functionals, I think that's again a vector, right? So bracket is a functional. When you say a quantum state has much more states than classical computer, how much bigger it is? Of course bigger because a classical computer, you know, every bit can live in only 2 distinct states. And on a quantum machine, a qubit can have infinitely many states. It's much more bigger state space. Is superposition define the states only? Superpositions don't define states. I mean, states, I mean, you can have a state in a superposition of two states. Why qubits? That was an interesting question now. Why qubits can be stored and read? Qubits actually cannot be stored so easily, and reading is also limited. Oh, classical to quantum mapping, I just gave a single mapping, right? I mean, I was saying that, okay, like suppose one can say that 0 goes to ket0, 1 goes to ket1. That's all. You can map in many other different ways. Why inner product can be defined in inner products can be defined in different ways. Inner products, there are different inner products on different vector spaces that can be defined in different ways. Why Quantum Lab utilizes Python only, I really don't know. How do we ascertain a system to be in quantum state physically? Won't the physical realization part Jyoti will take over. Can you please use cases where we can use quantum computing for better understanding? I mean, we are only starting and we have got much more to go. So we will of course look at that, but I can't do use cases without talking about the basics. Yes, Sandeep Singh asked that can we represent a single qubit using Hadamard basis? Of course we can do that. I actually showed that. If qubits have infinite states, then how can we measure a state at a given time? I mean, these are the questions we will be asking. It's a very good question. Gradually, that's what we are trying to look at. Any prerequisite readings suggested? I don't have that. I mean, we have this course, and this course is actually we are trying to do the prerequisites. How quantum communication is possible without storing the qubits, and these are the things that are interesting. What are the advantage of having more states as compared to classical computers? Because then, like, of course, I mean, like if you can store your all the files within 1 qubit, like if someone says actually, since a qubit can be an infinite number of states, then in some sense you can store any amount of information bounded, I mean finite information, any amount you can store within a qubit. So of course this is advantageous, but there are some disadvantages also. Okay. All right, so block sphere, Abhijit Kundu has asked, will you explain block sphere? I would love to explain block sphere in a later class. Yes, it's part of our syllabus. We will do that definitely. And if not this week, next week, and sometime definitely. All right, I think we have had enough questions. Will you take over? I'll then sign off. All right, so I will sign. Yeah, let us have 5 minutes break, and after that I will. Yeah, so I will request our team member from the CDAC if they would like to announce something, then please do that. We will come back after 5 minutes and Jyoti will take over.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yes. All right. Yeah. So, are my slides visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible, sir.
Fine. Good. Good. Right. Oh, there's only one shared window on this screen. And that's fine. Just yes. So
You can make it full screen, sir.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. For some
You can
strange
just
reason.
view. By using view, you can make it.
Yeah, I know, but there's supposed to be a just. Oh, yeah, I know why. Because I've unplugged that keyboard. Yes. Yeah. So, hello everyone. My name is Jyotishwaran. I am a PhD student in the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, IIT Roorkee. So, I am a PhD student under Professor Gangopadhyay. So, in this last session for today, for the next half an hour or so, we shall be discussing about the physical realizations of a qubit. Now, over here, before I begin, I would like to. Is my audio clear? I'm getting a chat that says my audio is not clear. Am I audible?
Sir, your audio is perfect, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, people who are not having unable to hear me, please check the audio on your end. Okay, so going forward for the next 25 minutes or so, I shall be disregarding the chat. So even if you type something, please do not expect me to pay attention to that. So yeah, moving on. So in today's discussion, what we shall be seeing is like for the last 2 hours or so, we have been hearing a lot of mathematical jargon. The aim of this discussion, it's going to be a short discussion, is essentially to provide some kind of a physical context to that. Right now, I'm not particularly going to talk about a physical implementation of a qubit. That is why I have not used the word implementation. I'm talking about a physical realization. When I say a realization, what I'm saying is, what I mean is, what like we've seen several concepts. Now we shall look at physical objects that embody these concepts. So with that, let us begin the presentation. So this is the overall outline. So first, what have we heard so far? So far, we've seen the definition of a qubit, and somewhere along the line, the state space C2 or C cross C was mentioned, and we saw the word vector space being thrown about. Qubits were said to exist in a state of superposition, and there is also a word of measurement. Of course, that was not dealt with in significant detail, but we shall be touching briefly upon that in our current discussion. And there were many other concepts that were seen. Now, what we shall do now in this session is essentially we are going to give a physical context to the various concepts that have been discussed in the previous lecture. And for that, unfortunately, for some and fortunately for others, we will have to discuss a little bit of physics. Now, at the outset, I would like to state that the physics being discussed here is not directly relevant for the course. This is only to give a context. You will not be questioned on the physics that is being discussed here. In fact, for all intents and purposes, except for the things that I'm asking you to remember, you will be fine even if you forget all the physics that is being discussed here. To students of physics or those who are interested in physics, the extent to which I shall be discussing things here is going to be very rudimentary, and I shall even be fudging some details in order to keep the discussions brief and keep the concepts simple. So that is what it is. Before we start, this is a course, this is an introduction to quantum computation. So this is fundamentally a computation course. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is a discussion of physics really necessary to learn computation? The answer to this question is actually yes. So for that, let us take a step back and talk about classical computing for a second. A classical bit can exist in one of two states. These states are labeled 0 and 1, and this is a binary digit which we call a bit. And this is the most fundamental unit of information. Classical computation is the processing of information that is stored in terms of bits. So fundamentally, that is what classical computation is. So in order to do classical computation, we need to define these classical bits and store them in a physical place so that they may be read, computed, and the corresponding results, which will also be in a single bit or a sequence of bits, a string of bits, to be written to a place. So reading and writing is necessary. Therefore, we need some kind of a memory. And because of that, computation, whenever we talk about computers or computation, it is always referring to a physical object. Now, the reason why in the domain of classical computing, we do not need to study physics is that the implementations of these mathematical ideals, like whenever we talk about bits are present in registers or flip-flops, or in your memory, they are present in the hard disk, they are present in an SSD. So these physical modalities of implementation of the classical bit are fairly standardized. The science behind them is well known, and the engineering required to construct, modify, and transmit data from one to another is pretty well established. Since these things are well established, it is possible for a computer engineer or a computer programmer to work with a computer with little to no understanding of the underlying physics. But to design a computer, a whole lot of physics has to be studied by someone. So be it classical computing or quantum computing, physics is going to be an indelible part of this domain. So if you have a computer, rest assured that someone at some point of time studied, researched, and did a lot of physics to come up with the device designs. And there were a bunch of engineers who worked on how to fabricate these devices, and a bunch of other people who figured out how to make these devices for cheaper, to manufacture them in a large scale. Then and only then are all these things put together and we have a computer in our hand. So by that same token, when we are talking about quantum computing, yes, it is perfectly possible to talk about quantum computation with just the underlying math alone. It is perfectly possible, and no amount of understanding will be lost. However, if we are talking about performing quantum computation, then the physical realization is essential, and therefore understanding the physical realization, or at least the rules pertaining to the physical aspects of a qubit, is important. So, So now what is the physics that we are going to discuss? The physics that we are going to discuss is a little bit of electromagnetism. So first, let us start with what are known as electromagnetic waves or light waves. So light is described by an electromagnetic wave, and this usually consists of an electric and a magnetic field component. And there is this thing known as a plane polarized light. Now, what this is, I'm not going into the details. Once the slides are shared with you, you can, Google these things and see. These concepts are pretty old. Like the notion of plane polarized light has been known for, I don't know, almost 250 years now, at least, if I'm right, if my memory serves me right. Somewhere down the line, around 150 years ago, it was established that the electric field of a plane polarized light can be represented in this form. So the electric field vector E is given by this function, which is a sine function, sine omega t minus kz. So here, this particular function represents a light wave that is moving along the z direction. Now, what I mean by this, it will become clear in the subsequent slides, so kindly bear with me. So this is a light wave that is propagating along the z-axis. So here we are talking about our real three-dimensional space. So we have x, y, and z-axis. So if I have a light wave moving along the z-axis, then the equation of that wave is given by E vector is equal to some n cap. So n cap is a unit vector, which is in the xy plane. We shall see what that n cap is. E naught, which is the magnitude of the electric field, times sine omega t minus kz. This quantity omega, the Greek alphabet here, contains the information of the frequency of the light. This quantity k contains the information about the wavelength of the light. So here again, for people who are being very stringent, I'm assuming that this is light propagating through free space. So I'm not introducing any medium effects. For those who do not, who did not understand what I just mentioned, ignore it. It is perfectly fine to ignore it. So this n cap is a unit vector. Now, what is a unit vector? It is expected that you guys understand what a unit vector is. A unit vector is a vector whose magnitude is 1. So any given vector can be written as a unit vector multiplied by a magnitude, which is a scalar quantity, which is a number. So moving to the next slide. This was whatever information we will need regarding light waves for our discussion. Now, there are also light particles. Now, what are light particles? At around 1900, 120 years ago, it was established by certain people that the light waves that we saw just before actually consists of particles called photons. So now, the electromagnetic wave that I represented by the function in the previous slide can now be visualized as a stream of a very large number of photons. It is a perfectly valid visualization. So whenever I'm saying that an electromagnetic wave is propagating in a certain direction, we can also equivalently say that a large number of photons are moving in that direction. And the electromagnetic wave and the photon are two objects that are interconnected. So the electromagnetic wave that we discussed previously is now associated with each photon in that stream. So what this association is, I am not describing here. I'm only saying that there is a connection between these two. And therefore, every property that I assign to the electromagnetic wave is now also a property of the photons themselves, the particles that compose that light is composed of. Now, therefore, when I said that this omega represents, and the variable t here is time, this wave is a function of time. I forgot to mention that before. Omega here contains the information of the frequency of the wave, and k represents the wavelength of the wave. But now it is perfectly valid to say that the photons in that electromagnetic wave have a certain frequency and are of a certain wavelength. So the wavelength and frequency now also become properties of the photon. Now this interconnection, this mixing between wave and particle property and the resultant wave particle duality and all of these things were a part of the initial discussion of the discipline of physics that came to be known as quantum mechanics. So what I've mentioned here in very loose terms is the very initial stages of quantum mechanics. So the understanding of quantum mechanics began with this concept that light itself contained of particles whose energy is discretized. So that is essentially where the word quantum itself comes from. So photons are otherwise known as quanta of light. So that is where quantum mechanics and subsequently quantum computing and everything gets the name from. So, and that is also why I'm using this to describe the physical properties of a qubit. So now, whenever I draw a wave, understand that the wave has a number of photons associated with it, and every property of the wave is also a property of the photons of each of them. I'm seeing some questions. I'm disregarding it as I mentioned before. Once this session is over, I intend to finish within the next 15 or 20 minutes so that we can have around 20 minutes of questions for everything that we have discussed so far. And with that, we can end the session. So kindly hold on to your questions, and people who have posted your questions already, when the Q&A starts, please remember to repost your questions and post them only once. So now, yes, the quantity n cap that we mentioned before, this unit vector is what is known as the polarization of the light wave. So when I say plane polarized light, this polarization information is stored in this vector M. So the polarization of an electromagnetic wave propagating along the z-axis. So if you can see in this image, this line here is the z-axis, and these two axes are the xy axis. So when an electromagnetic wave, now as I showed you before, this is a sine function. So a sine function will look something like this. So this wave is now propagating like this along this z direction. Now the polarization can be along any direction. If the light is plane polarized, it can be along any direction in the xy plane along these two axes. So the polarization, so here I'm assuming that this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So it is possible for the light to be polarized completely along the x-axis. So n cap that I mentioned before can be x cap. So in that case, our light wave, the function will look something like this. This is not how light looks. This is how the function representing the light wave looks. It is technically not possible to see light because we see through light. So those questions will become too complicated. We are not talking about that. So this is the function representation. So this is just a sine wave. So now this is a wave that is horizontally polarized, that is along the x-axis. Similarly, this is a wave that is vertically polarized. The arrows here at each of these points denotes the magnitude and direction of the electric field. So the longer the arrow, the greater the magnitude. As you can see, for plane polarized light, the direction remains pretty much the same. Like it is either in the plus x direction or in the minus x direction, or the value of the electric field is 0. As the wave propagates further and further along the z-axis, the length of these arrows keep changing. Same is the case over here also for vertically polarized waves. So it is possible to have vertically polarized light waves and horizontally polarized light waves. Now these two physical waves exist. It is possible to generate these light waves. It is possible to propagate them through space. Moving on to the next slide. Now, we are dealing with XYZ, the Cartesian space, the vector space that we are familiar with so far. And we have mentioned that the polarization is along the x-axis or the y-axis. So now I am no longer considering the z-axis. I am leaving the z-axis. I am only going to discuss about the polarization vector that is in the xy plane. So going forward, I shall only be looking at the two-dimensional xy plane. I am disregarding the x-axis. That is why the vectors that I am representing here only have 2 components and not 3 components. So the linearly independent vectors like 1, 0 and 0, 1 represent the vertical and horizontal polarizations respectively. That is, when we are talking about the polarization vector, if I show you the vector 1, 0, the column vector 1, 0, this corresponds to the y-axis because it is vertical polarization. And when I write the vector 0, 1, it corresponds to the x-axis, which is the horizontal polarization. Oh, sorry. Apologies. Yeah, horizontal polarization. So now, of course, since the polarization can be any unit vector in the xy plane, it is possible for light to be polarized in any slanting angle also. So what will happen if I have a line in my xy plane that is pointing in some oblique angle? What will happen if the polarization of the light is oblique? Well, based on the knowledge of vector algebra in the xy plane, we can say that now since I have defined everything, now the angles here are being measured with respect to the vertical axis. It is not being measured with respect to the x-axis. It is being measured with respect to the y-axis. That is why I'm writing cos theta 1, 0 plus sin theta 0, 1. So essentially, I'm writing cos theta times. So the angle made here is theta with respect to the y-axis. So it is going to be cos theta y cap plus sin theta x cap. X cap and y cap are represented by these two-dimensional vectors. So the resulting polarization vector of this light wave that is polarized at an oblique angle can now be represented as a column vector that contains cos theta and sin theta. Therefore, now if I'm talking about plane polarized light of a particular frequency propagating along the z direction, the only missing information, let me go back a few slides. So here, what are all the properties associated with the light wave? There is a frequency, there is of course an amplitude. We are going to disregard the amplitude for now. The frequency and this number k are interrelated, so mentioning only the frequency is enough. So the associated properties are n cap and omega. Now omega is already given to us. So the only thing that we need to specify to define our light wave is this direction of polarization for plane polarized light. Now that direction of polarization can be 0, 1 in the case of horizontal polarization, a two-dimensional vector, column vector, the column vector 1, 0 in the case of the vertical polarization, and cos theta sin theta in the case of an oblique polarization. So these are the vectors we are using to represent these individual light waves. So this is what you have to understand here. Going forward, whenever I write this vector, it is implied that I am referring to the associated light wave. Now the light wave is a physical object generated by a light source. It is propagating from point A to point B. And these things can be set up. So this is the connection between the mathematical object that is a vector and the physical object that is a light wave or a stream of photons. So now there are these objects known as polarizers. Like some of you might know what they are. Now polarizers are optical filters that allow light waves of a particular polarization to pass through them. So polarizers themselves will have an axis assigned to them. If the light wave that falls on a polarizer is aligned along the same axis, if the polarization of the light wave and the direction of the polarizer match, then light will pass through that polarizer. If the polarizer angle and the light's polarization angle are perpendicular to each other, then no light will pass through. So a vertically aligned polarizer will block all horizontally polarized light from passing through. And a horizontally aligned polarizer will block all vertically polarized light from passing through. So that is what is mentioned in statement 2 of this slide. So this is fine for vertical and horizontally polarized lights, but what about obliquely polarized light? So when I have, let us say, a vertically aligned polarizer and I am trying to pass an obliquely polarized light, so what happens? Now I can go through the math to explain this, but rather than that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a small YouTube video. So it's a 17-minute video. I shall be skipping ahead periodically and I shall be making some comments. The links are available in the slides. So when the slides are shared, you will get the link to the video. I recommend that all of you see this video. It is a very good video that explains how polarizers work. And for those of you who've been wondering where these plane polarized waves exist, it shows a very obvious source which is capable of emitting plane polarized light. So without further ado, let me switch windows to my browser. So I suppose my browser is visible. The YouTube page must be visible now. Can someone confirm? Yeah, thank you. Please just. Yeah, so let me start the video. Okay, so you're unable to hear the audio, right? Yeah, just 1 second. I need to switch my audio source probably. How do I do that? Just 1 second. It used to be possible before. Okay, fine. So I seem to be unable to. Yeah, I can turn on the subtitles. Yes. So yeah, so can someone confirm if you can hear the video? If not, I will just explain what is happening here. That will also be easier. Like, can you hear the audio? No. Okay, fine. So I will explain. So essentially what is happening is this film over here is a polarizer, and the tape here denotes the alignment of the polarizer. So this polarizer is aligned along this direction. What is seen behind here is nothing but an LCD display. So for those of you who are viewing this meeting on a phone or what to say, like any kind of an LCD display, all LCD displays emit plane polarized light. So that is another reason why I chose to explain this phenomena using plane polarized light. So essentially what is happening here is, yeah, let me mute this and I will essentially commentate over this video. So now this polarizer is aligned and this object, the star, is being visible through the polarizer. So some light is passing through. Now they are using two polarizers, both aligned in the same direction, and you can see that the star is still visible. Now observe what happens when they are going to do what they'll do next. Yes. So as you guys can see, let me just rewind. Yeah. So let me. Okay, that is not. Yes. So when both of these arrows were aligned, the star was visible, and as they kept turning it, the screen got darker and darker and darker. And when the angle became 90 degrees, no light was passing through. The star is no longer visible. So this is essentially what I mentioned in the previous slides. So here, the first polarizer is vertically aligned. The second polarizer is horizontally aligned. So light coming out of a vertically aligned polarizer will not pass through a horizontally aligned polarizer. So that is exactly why this display has turned black here. And the angle, the 90-degree angle, need not be in this direction. In any direction, if it makes an angle of 90 degrees, the passage of light will be blocked. So that is what is being represented here. Now, as you can see, if the polarizer is held in the horizontal angle, light is still passing through. Now on top of it, if one places a vertical polarizer, now remember that the vertical polarizer is placed on top of the horizontal polarizer. Again, light is not passing through. So this is what I meant when I said light, horizontally polarized light cannot pass through a vertically aligned polarizer. So both of these are true. If vertical light is hitting a horizontal polarizer, it will not pass through. If horizontal light is hitting a vertical polarizer, it will also not pass through. So that is what is happening here. Now, in this subsequent example, what you're going to see is this. So, okay, let me explain one more thing before moving ahead. The LCD display itself sends light in a particular polarization. So the display itself has a predefined axis of polarization. There is a polarizer on the display itself. So when we are aligning this vertical polarizer in front of the display, that is why it is getting darkened. Essentially, some light is getting absorbed for some reason. Now, what is that reason? We will see that now. So now there is only one polarizer, and what Professor Melloff or whoever is recording this video is doing, observe what they are doing. They are turning the polarizer manually. And as you can see, at a certain point, at a certain angle, the brightness of this star becomes maximum. Let me go back a few seconds. See, as you can see, this is pretty dark over here. But as they start turning, the image becomes brighter and brighter and brighter. So when they come to around this angle, which is like somewhere between close to 45 degrees, like the exact angle is not important. At this point, the brightness of the image is maximum, which implies most amount of light coming from the display is passing through the polarizer. So let me quickly go back to the slide. So the question we asked here is, what will happen when obliquely polarized light wave is incident on a vertical or a horizontally aligned polarizer? So what will happen is only a part of the light will pass through. Only a small fraction of the light wave will pass through. If the angle is 90 degrees, no wave will pass through. But if the angle is somewhere between 0 and 90 degrees, a fraction of the light wave will pass through. So in the video that we are seeing here, essentially in the initial configuration, let's just, yes. So in the initial configuration, the light that is coming out of the display is polarized along this direction. It is polarized along this direction. And the polarizer is vertically polarized. So when light falls on this polarizer, only a part of the light is coming through. That is why this image is slightly dark. However, when the alignment is made perfect, most of the light is passing through and therefore the image is appearing really brightly. It's almost as bright as the display itself. Of course, some amount of brightness will be lost because this is a new material introduced in front of the screen. So some absorption will take place. So that cannot be avoided. So this is essentially what happens when we have vertically aligned polarizers with obliquely aligned light. The same results hold for horizontally aligned polarizers also. All these configurations are, demonstrated in this video. As I mentioned before, when the slide is shared, this link will be presented. So go through and see this video to your heart's content. If you have any questions based on this after watching the video, please get back to us. I shall answer them. If you have any questions right now, I will take them after the session is over. Now I am moving on with the session. So I'm closing my browser. I shall open my, yes. Are my slides visible? Can someone confirm? No, okay, yes. So, yeah. I will have to is the browser still visible? Okay, yes. So I've stopped sharing. Yes. So now now my slide should be visible. Yes. So moving on. Now without more explanations, I will just explain certain rules. The next part you guys can remember if you want. So essentially what is happening is when a light wave with oblique polarization, that equation 1, like cos theta sin theta polarization, is incident on a vertically aligned polarizer, only a fraction of this wave comes out of the polarizer. Now the fraction that comes out, now the polarizer is aligned along the vertical direction. It is aligned along the 1, 0 direction, which is what we assign to the vertical direction. The fraction that will come out is actually modulus of cos theta squared. And in case the polarizer is horizontally oriented, then the fraction of the light that passes through is modulus of sin theta squared. In general, if I have light that is polarized along one direction and a polarizer that is oriented along another direction, the fraction of light that will pass through the polarizer is defined strictly by the angle between the polarizer and the polarization of the light wave. So if that angle is alpha, then mod cos alpha squared will pass through. Like that is the fraction that passes through. Now cos theta can vary from 0 to 1. Therefore, mod cos theta, sorry, minus 1 to 1. So mod cos theta squared will vary from 0 to 1. So this fraction is actually a well-defined fraction. And since, I mean, this mod cos theta squared can be written as just cos squared theta because it's a real number. And so this is the fraction of light that passes through a polarizer. Another important thing that is to be remembered, when light passes through a particular polarizer, the light that comes out on the other side will be oriented only along the direction of the polarizer. So if light, a certain amount of light has passed through a vertically aligned polarizer, its polarization will change. Even if whatever it was before it hit the screen, after it passes through the polarizer, its direction of polarization will only be vertical. If light is passing through a horizontal polarizer, the moment it passes the horizontal polarizer, the direction of polarization will become horizontal. So polarization of transmitted light wave is always along the alignment of the polarizer. So this is also something that should be remembered. These last 2 points are the points to be remembered here. Now this is a classical result. Again, this has been known for around 200 years. Now where does quantum mechanics enter into this? As I mentioned before, all the properties of the light wave can be ascribed to the photon. So essentially, what this means is this. When I'm saying only a part of the light wave, only a fraction of the light wave is passing through, it can alternatively be interpreted that only a fraction of the photons in the light wave are moving through. So mod cos theta squared, which was the fraction, only that many photons are passing through the polarizer. The rest are getting blocked. And when this angle theta goes to 90 degrees, cos theta will become 0. So mod cos theta square will be 0. So the fraction of photons that are passing through the polarizer will become 0. Again, as was the case with the wave, the polarization of the photons is also along the direction of the polarizer through which they passed, if they passed through. So this is the quantum interpretation, the quantum mechanical interpretation of the experiment. Yes. So now these are the properties of electromagnetic waves and the properties of the associated photons. Now, from this, we shall try to correlate the concepts that we have learned so far with the properties of a qubit that we have discussed in the previous lecture. So now the following things can be said based on our discussion so far. In general, if I'm saying that light wave is incident, like I'm not telling you what the direction of the polarization of a given light wave is. Now, if I hold a polarizer and if I'm asking, is this light wave going to pass through that polarizer? Can we answer that question? The answer is actually no. We cannot in general say if a given light wave will pass through any given polarizer. If we mention the direction of the polarizer, then the polarizer and the direction of the polarization of the light wave, then we can compare these two directions, see the angle between them, and then say that the probability of that photon or light wave being transmitted is given by cos squared alpha. That is why this is also the fraction of photons that are being transmitted. Essentially, this quantity in the previous slide that we saw as the fraction of photons that are being transmitted can now be interpreted as the probability of a photon getting transmitted if its polarization is at an angle alpha to the given polarizer. So what I'm saying here is, if I have a single photon of a given polarization, let us say it is polarized at angle alpha, and it is incident on a polarizer, what will happen is, like, have I mentioned it in, no, I have not. Yes. So the single photon part, we will come back to it again in a later lecture. So what I'm essentially saying is, this fraction of transmission that is happening is now being represented as a probability of transmission, and that quantity is the same as this. And going back a couple of slides, for a vertical polarizer, the transmission probability was mod cos theta squared. For a horizontal polarizer, the transmission probability is sin theta, mod sin theta squared. So we know that from what to say, like trigonometric identities, that sin squared theta plus cos squared theta is 1. So either the light is going to be passed through a vertical polarizer, and when this light passes through a horizontal polarizer, like when vertically polarized light passes through a horizontal polarizer, it gets completely absorbed. So essentially, in this case, like what we can say, what we can say is, if the probability, the fraction of light that is being transmitted is mod cos theta squared, then the fraction that is not being transmitted is 1 minus mod cos theta squared. So that quantity is actually mod sin theta squared because of the trigonometric identities. It is because of that relation that over here I am able to interpret that fraction of transmission as a probability of transmission for a photon. Now, again, how does this correspond to a qubit? So that we shall see in the next slides. So now we mentioned that the photon can exist. Okay. Going back to equation 1 briefly. Obliquely polarized light has components of both vertically polarized light and horizontally polarized light. So this light wave is simultaneously both vertically polarized and horizontally polarized. It is a linear combination of these two vectors, or in other words, this is a superposition of these two vectors, and these are the superposition coefficients like cos theta and sin theta. And if those are the superposition coefficients, is there any issue with my voice? Okay, some people are saying that it is clear. Okay, no issues. Fine, I'm continuing. So the obliquely polarized light wave can be seen as a linear superposition of the vertical and horizontal polarization states. Now, we know that the vertical and the horizontal directions are orthogonal. They are perpendicular to each other. In classical geometry itself, like in 3D geometry, the x-axis is perpendicular to the y-axis. So these two polarization states are orthogonal to each other. So any polarization of the photon, of the light wave, can be represented as a linear combination of these two orthogonal polarization states. It is not only that vertical and horizontal are the only allowed polarization state. In fact, I can take any two orthogonal polarization state and represent any other polarization as a linear combination of these two things. This is a property of two-dimensional vector algebra. We are just borrowing that. And the total polarization can be represented as a linear combination of these orthogonal states. Now, the thing that we performed was an experiment. When we placed a polarizer and we asked, okay, now is this photon like, so imagine now that I'm not sending a stream of photons, I'm just sending one photon. It is polarized at some oblique angle. It is polarized at an angle alpha to a polarizer. Now that single photon is hitting that polarizer. Now I'm asking, is this photon going to pass through the screen or not? In reality, this question cannot be answered deterministically. The result of this experiment can only be interpreted statistically. So it is only possible to interpret the result of this experiment statistically. So when a photon of an oblique polarization falls on a given polarizer, it may or may not pass. The probability of transmission, the probability of that photon passing is given by the angle between the photon polarization and the angle of the polarizer, alpha, and the probability of transmission is given by mod cos alpha whole squared. Again, all of these, I am not stating this as a mathematical rule. These were experimentally verified and found out. Like, this is not because of vector components that this transmission is happening. That law of transmission was experimentally verified, and because of that, the structure of this vector space was imposed on light waves. So the math came after the physics here. That is to be remembered. So such photon polarization states, they can be used as qubits, but they are technically not used in quantum computing. These are more extensively used in quantum information and communication, and in things like quantum key distribution, such photons, like polarized photons, are used as qubits. However, in quantum computation, these are not the qubits that we use. And more about those qubits that can be used in computation, we'll maybe discuss at a later state. Like, we'll probably have some supplementary sessions. Details of that we will share with you later. For now, this is a qubit, and all the properties that we have discussed so far is true for all kinds of qubits, because it is the same physical law that governs the behavior of a photon qubit, or an electron qubit, or a superconducting qubit, or whatever qubit you can imagine. The fundamental rules are the same. Only the context in which those rules are applied. Like, of course, if I'm talking about an electron qubit, it no longer has, some sine wave associated with it. It can have some other mathematical property associated with it. But ultimately, if I'm trying to perform an experiment to estimate the polarization, or, estimate that physical property of that qubit, then the result of that experiment can only be interpreted statistically. I cannot deterministically say what will happen. These experiments are closely related to the concept of measurement. As Professor Gangopadhyay mentioned, how this corresponds to measurement, we shall discuss tomorrow. Now, so far, very comfortably, very conveniently, I just use sine theta, cos theta, sine theta square, cos theta squared, and use trigonometry to explain all these things. But Professor Gangopadhyay spent 2 hours talking about complex numbers. So what about complex numbers? Going back a few slides, this is a real linear combination of these two vectors. Now, what about complex linear combination of these vectors? Are they allowed? Are such waves, like, if I take a complex linear combination of these two waves, will it still be an electromagnetic wave? The answer is yes. If we have a complex linear combination, what essentially happens is we get polarizations that are called circular or elliptical polarizations. So this is one example of circularly polarized light. So as opposed to the plane polarized light, where the length of the arrow was shortening, like, let me go back here. So as you can see here, in horizontal or vertical polarization, this arrow denotes the the direction and magnitude of the electric field. The electric field was increasing, decreasing, going to 0, then decreasing in the negative direction further, and then increasing towards 0 again, and then increasing to a maximum. So it is varying like this. The length of this arrow keeps changing. Whereas for complex linear combinations of vertical and horizontal polarizations, we will get what is known as circularly polarized light. In that case, the electric field, actually the length of this arrow does not change. This arrow keeps rotating around the z-axis. It goes like a helix. So it will just go one round here and another round here, and it will keep going round and round and round. So that is essentially what is known as circular polarization. In that case, it is actually not possible to define a fixed direction of polarization. The direction of polarization keeps varying as a function of time. So when we have complex linear combinations, light is no longer plane polarized. It is circularly polarized light, but they also have all the same properties that were discussed so far. And this concept of relative phase and global phase and all of these things will come in here. Tomorrow's session, I'll discuss in greater detail as to where these things correspond to what. With that, I shall end my session now, and I shall take questions. So people who have typed questions before, I have not seen that. And for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go scrolling up. You can ask your questions, just post them once so that I can start right now and continue reading from this point. So just repost your question and ask it once. All right, so let me stop share so that I can address the chat. So let me pop the chat out. Yes. So yeah. What is the time now? It's 12:51. So I'll start from 12:51. Yeah, there are thank yous for the session. Fine. So yeah, guys who have asked questions before, if you want your questions answered, please repost them. Just post them once. I will come to that. How do we ascertain the quantum state to be in a particular state? Yeah, we can't. We can't. So if you want, let us talk about photons themselves. If we want to talk about horizontally or vertically aligned photons, the only way to be sure that we are getting vertically or horizontally aligned photons is to have a photon source and stick a vertically aligned polarizer in front of it. So now I know any photon that is coming out of that polarizer will be vertically aligned. Without performing that experiment, without performing that filtering, I cannot a priori determine the quantum state of a given object. I will have to perform this kind of an experimental interaction. And with this interaction, there is an associated measurement. I'm not going into the details of that yet. So, Mohammad Sajid Alam has asked, is it okay to talk about the polarization of photon? Yes, it is perfectly valid because the electromagnetic wave. So now I shall go into a little bit of details. Again, remember, none of this is required to understand quantum computing. I'm just giving some context and fleshing things out. So whatever you see as the wave function of an electron or as a particle is, in the case of the photon, the associated electronic wave is, the electromagnetic wave is the wave function. So the polarization of that wave is the polarization of the photon. The frequency of that wave is the frequency of the photon. So every property of the wave is also the property of the photon, because the electromagnetic wave is no longer just a classical intensity electric and magnetic field wave. It is actually the wave function of the photon themselves. So if we create, so this is Subhashish Brahma, who is asking if we create qubits based on polarized photons, how can we persist their polarization? We can't. That is precisely why polarized photons are not used for quantum computing, because it is very hard to like photons will never stay still. Photons will and always have to move at the speed of light. Photons can never ever be still. So if I have to trap a photon, I will have to create some kind of a photon trap first. I'll have to create some kind of an optic fiber loop or something through which I send the photon round and round and round. So containing them, storing them, changing the state, all of these are difficult. However, if we can create it and transmit it, we can have specialized optic fibers. We can have polarization compensation fibers, we can have dispersion compensation fibers, and all of these things to kind of reduce the effect of external noise. So in such restricted conditions, it is possible to create and transmit polarized photon qubits. But in general, using polarized photon qubits for quantum computing is difficult, and to the best of my knowledge, it is not advisable. Of course, there may be some breakthrough in the future that makes it the easiest method. But well, I don't know. Yeah, so what about the Chinese photon satellite? Yeah, they essentially did free space quantum key exchange, essentially quantum key distribution. Now that is a claim by them. I have read their paper, but of course, I mean, because it is it's a national secret for them, not much detail has been divulged. They are saying that they have done it, but we cannot verify their claims. It is a claim, yes, that they have performed free space transmission. In theory, it is possible, but the practicalities of it, how much resources does it require? Because ultimately the process that happened is just the exchange of a secret key. It is not an end-to-end communication protocol. It is not even an encryption protocol. It is just a key exchange. Now that key goes into, like it becomes the key for some kind of an encryption decryption system, some kind of a crypto system. So we do not know how much resources the Chinese spent to launch their satellite, even if it works. So is it based on quantum computing? Of course, yes, it uses the principles that we have discussed so far. Do we have a practical session today? No, after this Q&A is done, this session will be over. Can I speak slowly? Okay, yeah, I will try to speak slowly. Apologies if I'm speaking a bit fast. I have the habit of speaking slightly fast. However, the recordings and the slides will all be provided. So if I'm speaking a bit too fast for you, like kindly bear with me. I apologize beforehand, and go back and listen to the recordings. I will try to speak a bit slower. Timings for tomorrow, I think the folks at CDAC will let you know about that. Okay, the polarizer angle and the photon direction are given. Yes. So let us say they are, as I mentioned before, if the angle is, let me say, 45 degrees. Now mod cos square 45 is 1 by 2. So essentially what it is saying is now a single photon is hitting a polarizer. Now I cannot say half of a photon is passing through. Either a photon passes through or it is absorbed. So this is in response to a question by Nilotpal Biswas. So the question was like, if the angles are given, won't we be able to say directly? What we will be able to say directly is the probability of transmission. But if I take a single photon of a particular polarization and throw it, essentially, like throwing is a very wrong word to use, but imagine that I'm able to throw it, I'm able to shoot it at a polarizer, which is oriented at another angle. I know the relative angles. Let us say it is 45 degrees. Then the transmission probability is 50%, it is half. So it is 50% chance of passing through. So this particular photon that is hitting the screen may or may not pass. The only thing I can say is if I repeat this experiment multiple number of times, 50% of the times the photon will pass through, 50% of the times it will get absorbed. For a given photon, I cannot deterministically say this photon is going to pass through or not. That I can only say when the direction of the polarizer and the photon polarization are perfectly matched. Then and only then can I definitely say with 100% surety that this photon is going to pass. If the angles are perfectly orthogonal, if they are 90 degrees, then I can say with surety that the photon is going to get absorbed. In every other case, for a given photon, I cannot say if it is going to pass or not deterministically. So this is a question from Pooja. Is it necessary whether the polarization axis, can it be between? Okay, yeah, so this is just a reference. Like in principle, we can have all kinds of axes, as I mentioned during the lecture also. Any two orthogonal states, in fact, we can not. It is not even required to take a fixed axis. We can even take circular polarizations for reference. So any two orthogonal states are possible. Any two orthogonally polarized states will form a basis. More mathematics regarding this will be discussed tomorrow. So you've also asked, we started with the concept of polarization of photon and connected it to qubits. So are they really related? Yes, they are really related. When will the slides be available? Soon after this session is over. Yes, what is the significance of polarization? Why do we need polarization of light? I mean, it's just a property of light. Like any light wave that you send will have a polarization. There is no significance. Like the only significance is that it is an inherent property of light. Like I'm not giving light a polarization. If light is propagating as an electromagnetic wave, it will have a polarization. So this is a question from Akhilesh Kot. I hope that answers that. I mean, I don't know if we need polarization of light or not. We just have it and we cannot get rid of it. I mean, so between relative and global phase, I shall do this tomorrow. Cover any part of like quantum. Okay, so this is from Rahul R. Will this course cover any part of quantum machine learning or quantum key distribution? Quantum key distribution we will not be covering in this iteration of the course. However, there are previous versions of the course where we have discussed quantum key distribution. Somewhere along this course, we will share the materials of that course as well. So you guys can go back and another version of this course has been run around twice before. So down the line, we will share the resources of that. That should contain some discussions of quantum key distribution. Quantum machine learning is technically not the domain of either Professor Gangopadhyay or myself. So we will not be suitable people to lecture on that. However, I don't know if someone in CDAC wants to talk about quantum machine learning, we will bring them into this session. So those developments, as and when they happen, we shall share with you as they come about. So yeah, I'm going further. Okay, I should be taking questions for another 10 minutes. Why particularly sine theta and cos theta? So this is from, okay, wait. Do we have any practical session today? Any other session after this? No. Arnabha Das has said, I've given the equation for polarized light. Yes, of course, I've given the equation for polarized light. That's a statement. Why particularly cos theta and sine theta? Well, in this case, the vector that I considered is a, the components can be represented in terms of cos theta and sine theta. That is it. So the vector components become the linear superposition coefficients, and because of that, I'm using the functions cos theta and sine theta. Now, is quantum machine learning different from quantum information processing? This is, a question of semantics. Any processing of information is information processing. So if I have quantum information, then it is quantum information processing. when I'm doing machine learning, I'm technically processing information. So yeah, this is a very big question. I'm sorry, I cannot give a specific answer to this. How does elliptically polarized light look when compared to circularly polarized light? Okay, so what happens is now if you were to look at, let me quickly share my screen. Yeah, so I hope you guys can see my screen now. So this is circularly polarized light. Essentially, if I were to stand over here and look at the XY plane through the Z axis, what I will see is that the electric field is moving in a circle. So that is circularly polarized light. In case of elliptically polarized light, what will happen is it will go round and round, but the length will also change. So the shape that it forms will be an ellipse. So that is what elliptically polarized light is. So in addition to going round and round, the length will also change. So that is all elliptically polarized light is. So I'll stop sharing now so that I can come back to the chat. Okay. So yes. How do we, yes. Does measurement itself change the state of the photon? Yes. Books and other resources will be shared eventually. This is in response to a question from Indrajit Kundu. So Shashank Saxena asks, does measurement itself change the state? Yes, it does. More on this later. Since these states are very sensitive, how can we preserve our information? It is very hard. How do we recover our information? Again, it is equally hard. Why and what we shall discuss in our subsequent session. Okay. So Pooja's question is now complete. Yeah, or did we just use the analogy? No, these are actually related. The photon polarization can be used, is a quantum parameter, and the polarized photon can be used as a qubit. It is in fact used as a qubit. It has been used experimentally, and the results have been observed. Everything that I've discussed so far has been experimentally verified also. Can we use n number of photons with no rotations? So that like, so okay, if you're referring to the number of photons itself as a state, this is in response to a question from Nihal V. Yeah, I mean, I'm not understanding this question clearly. Maybe at a later point you can repose this question. This is not directly relevant to the course contents that we shall be covering. Maybe you can ask this question later and I will answer this in greater detail. In analog system, you have a continuous signal, so we move to digital. But in quantum computing, we are again getting too many states. So how will it help us? Okay, so moving to quantum computing is technically not moving back to analog computing because our fundamental unit of information itself is changing here. So when we were talking about analog versus digital, there the information that was being stored was essentially in analog or like essentially continuous real numbers or discrete binary numbers. But here we are kind of jumping even beyond analog. Like fundamentally our information is being stored in terms of complex numbers. So in a certain sense, we are even worse off than we were in the analog systems. But now, where do we get the advantage? You will see that later. Like I cannot explain it quickly in 2 sentences. Can qubit be realized using photon spin? Manipulating photon spin is a very tricky matter. So in general, that is not advisable. Photon is if I've not forgotten my physics, it is a spin one particle. So doing those things is usually not very easy. Polarization is a much more easily manipulated, quantity, and engineering qubits using photon polarization is much better. How does a single photon? Is it possible? Huh? Oh, okay. Well, it's technically not in disagreement with the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. I can have a single photon. Heisenberg uncertainty principle only says that I cannot know the position and the momentum or the energy and the time of transit or time of lifetime of that photon simultaneously. Like Heisenberg uncertainty principle just says that certain pairs of quantities cannot be determined to arbitrary accuracies simultaneously. So it is possible to have single photons. Again, single photon sources are commonly available now. Like you can buy one for money, although it will cost you a lot of money, but it is possible to pay money and buy a single photon source. Okay, so now there is an application-based question. This is from Srinivas Rangarajan. Improving computing speeds for CFD. Okay, so now these larger scope questions. So going forward, if there are any questions about applications of quantum computing and where is it going to go in the future, it is even now, I would say it is too early to answer that question, because the actual potential of quantum algorithms, where they are applicable, where they are not applicable, where are like quantum algorithms faster than classical algorithms, where are they not faster, are they always faster? All these questions are open questions. So when we answer those questions, then and only then can questions such as yours be answered accurately. So for now, I will say this question is too general to be answered right now. In the coming years, we may know the answer to these questions. How do we create a qubit if we are not using photons? There are many other methods. They will be described later. So, okay, I did not say omega represents frequency. I said omega contains the information of frequency. Omega is 2 pi times the frequency, and k is 2 pi by lambda, where lambda is the wavelength. Are they not directly related by their speed? Yes, they are. I can simply use the velocity of light. However, if light is propagating through a medium, then k values and omega values, it is best to write them separately. So in general, when we are talking about electromagnetic waves that are propagating through media, it is better to separate omega and k. Because when light travels through a medium, its frequency does not change, but k will change. So that is the whole point of dispersion and all those things. So that is why I'm writing them separately and not combining them. However, when we are talking about electromagnetic waves propagating in free space, yes, I can use the speed of light, c, as a constant, which is always omega by k, and directly represent all the quantities with respect to the speed of light in free space. In a medium, however, that is technically not possible. Is it possible to get 3D wave polarization? So if light is propagating in a certain direction, the electromagnetic wave, it's a transverse wave. So if it is propagating in a certain direction, then the electric field will vary only perpendicular to the direction of propagation. So polarization will get contained in that space. So that is an inherent property of a transverse wave. So invariably in the direction of polarization, we are considering 3D propagation of the electromagnetic wave, but the direction of polarization will always get confined to a 2D subspace because light is a transverse wave. The variation of the electric and magnetic fields are always going to be perpendicular to the direction of transmission. Yeah, so there is a comment about Xanadu QC. Yeah, those things we shall see later. Yeah, so okay. We have already overshot the duration of this session by 10 minutes. I will take 5 more questions. Any questions that have been asked after this, most sincere apologies that I have not been able to address it. Please hold on to it. As I mentioned sometime before, yeah, considering the volume of people who are present here, in the coming days, we will either set up some kind of a Google Classroom or a Discord server or somewhere where you guys can post your questions and we can answer them, whenever we get the time. Please allow us to set those things up and we will get back to you. So right now I will take another 5 questions and we shall end the session. The rest of your questions, please remember them. And once we provide the platform, please ask your questions and we will be, of course, more than eager to answer your questions. Is there a WhatsApp group? I think we shall make them down the line. Okay, now there are just comments. Yes,
some Telegram groups we can create because number is high.
Yes, yeah. Okay, yeah, yes, of course. We shall be creating those groups and we will be sharing that information with you. So kindly just hold on. And any information that was mentioned here, if we need to repeat it, we will repeat it. So do not worry about missing something out. I will take personal responsibility for covering content that was missed out, lost in translation. So if something is forgotten, I will bring it forward and make sure that you guys are brought up to speed. So Does whole quantum computing work on probability? If yes, how can we be sure if we get the correct information or not? An interesting question. Insofar as a general quantum algorithm goes, yes, it works on probability. How can we be sure if we get the correct information or not? We can't. That is why every quantum algorithm needs to be performed multiple times. That is why, as I mentioned before, quantum experiments need to be statistically interpreted. We cannot perform it just once and say this is the answer. That is also true for classical experiments, but in quantum mechanics, it is implicitly true. Like there is no other way of interpreting quantum mechanical results. Will hardware be covered in the course? Slightly, but it will not be the principal focus. Light displays both photonic and particle nature are essentially the same. If you are asking, does it display both wave and particle nature? Yes. And every other particle also describes wave nature. That is kind of the essence of quantum mechanics. I will take this as the last question, since we are defining qubit with respect to a basis. Okay. So yes, this is a good question from, I suppose this is Bhaskar Chakraborty. I think the name is a typo. If it is not, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Since we are defining a qubit with respect to a basis, and the bases are not unique, yes. So the qubit state, as I mentioned before, when I mention a qubit state, it actually corresponds to a light wave or a photon or some other physical device. So the qubit state is the state of a physical device. The basis is something we use to understand it. So irrespective of the basis, whatever the basis is, the state is the state. Later on, as we are discussing the course further and further, we shall show basis independent representations of the qubit state. We shall take a ket vector or a bra vector and show how to represent it irrespective of what basis we consider. Okay, so the qubit states are unique. If we are specifying a state, then that state is unique. Changing the basis will change certain other things. It will not change the state itself. Okay, so yes, with that I'm ending the question. Yes, I am seeing Discord reminders. The point is to set up again such a large Discord server. We'll need to get a premium account and whatnot. Some money needs to be spent. So we'll have to figure out who's spending money where. So again, it's going to take some time. Kindly bear with us. As and when those things happen, we will, keep you guys up to speed. So with this, I'm ending this Q&A session. I apologize for those questions that I've not been able to pick up. Please remember your questions, ask them at a later point. They will all be answered eventually. Okay. So with that, I think we can end the session. Professor Gangopadhyay is currently busy. He might not be back for another 5 or 10 minutes. I think we can end today's session and we can reconvene tomorrow. So I shall hand control over to Ms. Vandana so that she can make any concluding remarks. Otherwise, she can end the session for today.
Yes, sir, we can end the session. And thank you for your, you have attended it. And thank you, Jyotishwaran sir, for your lecture. And
of course.
Probably the end of the day, we will provide some more information about tomorrow's lecture and links and everything. And assessment also, we will let you know about assessments when you need to do assessments and the deadline of the assessments. Right, sir?
Yeah, yes. Again, do not worry that information is coming delayed. Whatever appropriate time needs to be provided, we will provide it. So don't worry about it. We will take care of these things. We are handling these things. All right?
Yes. Yes.
Notes and slides will be provided to you soon after. So we shall be sending them to the folks at CDAC. They shall be sharing it with you. All right. So I think we can end the session with that. Thank you all for listening. And I hope to interact with you in the upcoming sessions also. So we'll see you again tomorrow. The timings you will know soon. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.